I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Let me just introduce everybody. To my far left, we've got Administrator Schroeder, then Commissioner Huxley, myself, Commissioner Gold, Commissioner Boyce, Council Huddle, and Administrative Assistant John Jesuit. Welcome, Trish. We haven't seen you in a long time. Okay, we're going to have to start with the public hearings because those were noticed at 10 a.m. So we'll start with the Curry County 4-H Extension Service. Louise? Oh. Okay, maybe. Okay. Can you introduce yourself?
Hi, good morning. I'm Cheryl McDonald, and I'm with the OSU Extension Service. I'm the office manager and coordinator for our office down there. Our county leader, Frank Burris, is on business out of the state right now, so I'm the placeholder for that.
How does it feel to be a placeholder?
I have all the power now.
Okay.
So today we are going to, it's in the matter of adopting our budget. Would you like me to read the resolution that I have prepared?
Are there any public comments, since this is a public hearing? And anybody can respond if they want. Okay, hearing no public comments, then we'll go ahead.
Okay. Whereas on June 20th, 2018, the governing body of the Curry County 4-H and Extension Service District met to hear public comment on the 2018-19 budget for the Curry County 4-H and Extension Service District as approved by its budget committee, which has been published according to law. And whereas the budget requires an ad valorem property tax rate on all property within the district in the amount of .1021 per $1,000 of assessed value, be it resolved that the governing body of the Curry County 4-H and Extension Service District hereby adopts the budget for fiscal year 2018-19 in the sum of $808,798, now on file at the Curry County Extension Service Office, and be it further resolved that the following appropriations are made for Curry County 4-H Extension Service District for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2018 and ending June 30th, 2019. Material and services, $328,163. Capital outlay, $500. Contingencies, $32,816 for total appropriation of all funds, $361,479. Total unappropriated and reserve amounts, $447,319 for total adopted budget all funds, $808,798. Be it further resolved that the governing body of the Curry County 4-H and Extension Service District hereby imposes taxes as provided for in the adopted budget at the rate of .1021 per 1,000 assessed value for operations, and that these taxes are hereby imposed for the tax year 2018-19 upon the assessed value of all taxable property within the boundaries of the district, and are categorized as follows. Permanent tax rate, .1021 per $1,000 for general government, and it's excluded from limit 0. Dated this 20th day of June 2018.
Okay. So right now you're probably looking for a motion to adopt this budget. Is that correct?
I would love a motion to adopt the budget.
Okay, do we have a motion to adopt the budget, 4-H budget?
Chair, I'll motion to adopt the 4-H budget as read.
Do we have a second?
Second, Madam Chair.
Any further discussion? Call for the question?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Your budget is now adopted. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And you did it in 4 minutes? Great.
Need copies? I've got 2 copies.
Did
for
we do
signature.
something wrong, Louise?
We do need to, just because we're buying the board, we do need to have all of these documents signed.
She needs to be up on the record, Chair.
We will get those signed today. Okay. We'll get that taken care of today.
And I believe they are in your packet, or do I need to provide?
No, they are.
Okay, great.
Good
Thank
enough.
you so much.
Thanks a lot. Okay, next we have Curry County Public Transit Service. Is someone here to represent them? Louise, are you going to do that? Okay. And since this is a public hearing, while she's getting up, does anybody have any public comments regarding this issue? Okay, since there are none, Louise, take it away.
CCPTSD, does that ring a bell? The acronym.
Louise Kallstrom, County Accountant. This is for the Curry County Public Transit Service District, and the resolution is in the matter of adopting the 2018-19 fiscal year budget, whereas the Curry County Public Transit Service District needs to adopt a budget by July 1, 2018 to have a legal spending authority. Therefore, be it resolved that the Curry County Public Transit Service District Board of Directors hereby adopts the budget for the 2018-19 fiscal year in the amount of $750,277 available at the County Clerk's office, and be it resolved that the amounts for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2018, and for purposes shown are hereby appropriated as stated. Materials and services $427,697, and capital outlay $322,580, dated the 20th of June 2018 by the Curry County Public Transit Service District Board of Directors. It's a long title.
So do we have a motion to approve the budget for the Curry County Public Transit Service District?
I'll make that motion, Madam Chair.
And you might want to add as presented.
As presented by Ms. Kallstrom, thank you.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? Call for the question?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next, moving on, we've got the Curry, yes.
We're following, these are public
Time sequences.
hearings, so they're to begin close to the time that's shown. We didn't have time to get into any adoption or anything else. Perhaps the chair would care to do that, and then we
You mean
come
go back to the original?
Well, because it's now 10:08 when we're already jumping to a public hearing scheduled for 10:20.
Okay, so let's get back to the regular agenda. First of all, let's talk about amendments to the agenda. Does anybody have any amendments to the agenda?
No, Madam Chair.
Yes, Madam Chair, there is an addition under 5E, chip seal oil quote. It's just a continuation basically of 5D, which is chip rock quote, and we have provided that material to the public and to yourselves, so we just want to add that as an amendment.
Okay. Any other amendments?
I had a question. I've received something from County Council this morning. Is that going to be an addition, or?
Thank you. I was going to have that presented, and what Commissioner Huxley and I passed out a memorandum. This was a follow-up, so it's probably old business. So yes, it didn't get put on the agenda, but at the last meeting, I explained that I would bring back to the board a memorandum on the analysis of the enforceability of the travel use policy as had been discussed. And so I prepared that memorandum. I didn't have time to get it into the agenda publication, and I believe it would fit under old business 8B, and that would just be travel policy discussion. So yes, that would be an amendment.
Any other further amendments to the agenda? Okay, hearing no further amendments, could I get a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved, Madam Chair.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? Call for the question?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next we've got public comments, and we only have one public comment today. Assessor Colon?
Good morning, Commissioners. Jim Cullen, Curry County Commissioner. I didn't really know when this might come up in today's agenda, and I could see it could possibly come up later, but if you'll permit, I'll do it now. I'm just here to request that you make an increase in the Commissioner's budget for travel. I think it's important for Curry County to be represented by all three Commissioners at various meetings, workshops, and legislative sessions in our county, in the state, in the region, and at times even in Washington, D.C. By developing relationships and having personal contacts, past commissioners have been very effective in bringing benefits to our county. A couple examples are the Harbor Sinkhole, the Law Enforcement Summit, and the sudden oak death money that's been coming in to help us battle that. I think in just those three items, travel dollars that have been spent by Curry County have been returned hundreds, maybe even thousands of times over, and travel has been an excellent investment for Curry County. I think we're very fortunate to have found another skilled county administrator to help relieve you of some of the administrative burdens that you have in running Curry County. However, Curry County still needs all hands on deck, and that being the county administrator and 3 full-time commissioners representing us everywhere you can until the county's financial issues are resolved. Possibly at that point, citizens may entertain the concept of a part-time commission. Again, my request is that you resume investing in Curry County's future and increase your travel budget so you can get out and represent us where we need to be represented. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just like to take the rest of his time, if it's okay, just to echo his sentiments and support the Sheriff John Ward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving on. Oops, we're going to go back to public hearings. So the next public hearing's not till 10:20, so we're good.
So we did do a motion to approve the amended agenda, or were there?
Yes, we did.
Okay, good.
And it went through.
All right, and then those public comments. So we do have 5 minutes still for.
Okay, so moving on. I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented, since there were no changes to that.
Madam Chair, real quick.
Yes.
On that consent calendar, where it says G intergovernmental agreements, we only submitted 3 of the IGAs because time to get them back to us, but I have 4 more to go. They're exactly the same as last year's. I just want to add those 4 to it. And that would be from the City of Port Orford, Police Department, Port Orford Fire, Pistol River Fire, and Langlois Fire. They just got their agreements back to us a little late, so I'm just going to add those to the 3. I'll give you all the originals right here, if that's okay.
He has further agreements to add to here.
So we're
They're
going to
exactly
re-amend, then we're going to open and re-amend the
Yeah.
adoption.
I think you could you could make a motion to approve the consent calendar as amended.
Okay.
But I have 2 items, Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes.
The minutes for May 2nd and June 13th. I want to pull out for discussion.
Okay. Okay, so one at a time then. So what are we doing for Sheriff?
Okay, the
Ward?
sheriff's adding 4 more agreements. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that's to item 4G.
Yes.
So let's note then, at 10:15.
And there will probably be a couple more stringing in, but I would just like to get this taken care of now. When they do come in, I'll just give them to the board and you guys can sign them, because there's no changes to them whatsoever.
So do you want us to make an agenda amendment that would include the future ones coming in also?
Yeah.
If they're exactly the same?
There's just a few more to come in, so
Until they're signed.
Well, it's a board option. The general protocol is we approve agreements after they're presented to us being signed, but it's not a legal requirement, so the board could approve them. I do think, and I'm not sure, we have, but Administrator Schroeder on announcements under this agenda, and I know we haven't gotten there yet, but it talks about 10B says a possible end of fiscal year meeting on June 27th. So the board has an option of, considering those next week.
Would that be too late to consider those?
No, it's
Okay.
We can bring them back at any time. I just want to make sure that, like I said, all these IGAs were coming in,
They're kind of stringing in there.
bringing in. No fault of our own. We just take
No,
time
I
to
got
get-
you.
And there's been no changes, so everybody's said they agree, they've got them, they've agreed to them, they're just going to sign them and get them back. That's why I brought these other 4 in today, just add them to the 3 that were here.
Commissioner Huxley?
Okay, so Administrator Schroeder just handed me a cover memo from the sheriff with listing 4, but having 7 here. I would prefer that we keep it straight. If we have a memo for 4, we include the 4 that are here that are signed.
Rather than the 7.
And then, rather than 7, the 3 that are unsigned. So that's my
Well, they're
Are
all
3 of
signed.
those, are 3 of these
I'm just
unsigned,
counting
or are
them.
they?
They're all signed.
They're not signed
They're
by
not.
you guys yet.
Right.
We're asking you to sign those 3 plus an additional
Okay, are
4.
some of these, some that were already included in the agenda today?
Yes.
Okay,
Three of
so
them were
that's
in the
the
packet.
difference.
We're adding 4 to the packet.
Okay, they're adding
Okay,
4
so
more.
these
that-
are the
okay.
Yeah, so all
total
7. Yeah, we'd be asking you to
Okay,
sign
so,
all those.
but asking for 4 additional for City of Port Orford Fire, Pistol River Fire, and Langlois.
That's the ones that we just submitted before.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay, so,
Yeah.
and just for those, okay, then we'll pass these with the memo on, I guess, to the
JJ?
administrative assistant.
Okay, I'm fine with that. So, okay, so it sounds like we're kind of okay with adding those 4 to the,
Yeah, so I would have you,
Amendment.
I would ask for you to make a motion to amend G to add 4 agreements.
okay, so do we have a motion to amend item 4G to add the 4 more things that Sheriff Ward gave to us, agreements?
I'll motion to add the 4 that have now been, the documents have been passed over to the administrative assistant.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second here?
Okay, any further discussion? Call for the question?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Did you want to vote?
Aye.
Okay, I didn't hear the aye, so just want to make sure.
So the other thing, and I think if I'm following correctly, you had adopted the agenda,
That's right.
but Commissioner Boyce had spoke up and wanted to review and discuss the minutes from the 2nd and the 13th.
Correct.
So you would have to make a motion to basically take that off the consent. Because normally what would happen is if you vote to adopt the agenda, you have to vote to take it off, as we just did. So you'd want to make a motion to...
Make a motion there, Madam Chair, to amend the accepted agenda and add the 2 consent calendar items on 4A.
You're talking about the May 2nd and the May 16th minutes?
May 2nd and June 13th.
Oh, and June 13th.
Correct.
Okay, do we have a second to that?
For discussion purposes, I'll second.
Okay.
Okay, I would like to also, and I had notes here, I just missed them as far as pulling, because we went right to public hearings. So I neglected to go back and look at my notes. So I would like to pull item 4B, item, and just with a question, but if we have a question, we'll pull it. Item 4C. Item 4E. And item 4H.
So what we would do is put that after the consent calendar. We've already done our public comments, so do we have a motion to amend the amended agenda to put items 4A, II, and I, and 4B, 4C, 4E, and 4H?
I would motion to amend as you just discussed.
Okay.
Question. Are we just talking about the consent calendar? We already
Just the
amended it.
consent calendar.
So was that reflected in Commissioner Huxley's
Yes, it was.
motion there?
Yeah.
Okay.
So do we have a
Second.
second? Okay, so there's a motion and a second to amend the consent calendar. Do we have any further discussion on that? Okay, hearing no discussion, call for the question.
Aye.
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 Okay, so do we have a motion? Now let's go back to the, this is going to be fun today.
Yeah.
Go back to the public hearings, the one that was supposed to start at 10:20. That's Curry County budget for 2018-19 fiscal year. And this is a public hearing. So I'm going to ask for any public comments to begin with. Does anybody have any public comments on this issue? Okay, hearing none.
I think,
Hallstrom.
yeah, and for the record, I think Jim Colin and the sheriff had those public comments on the budget to,
Okay.
to request, you know, the increase of the travel budget.
Okay, Louise.
So, Louise Kallstrom, County Accountant. This is in the matter of adopting the 2018-2019 fiscal year budget. Whereas Curry County needs to adopt a budget by July 1st, 2018 to have legal spending authority. Therefore, be it resolved that the Curry County Board of Commissioners hereby adopts the budget for the 2018-19 fiscal year in the amount of $55,073,862 available in the county clerk's office, and therefore be it resolved that that $19,415,329 is unappropriated and reserved for future budget years in the fiscal year 2018-2019 budget. And be it resolved that $35,658,533 for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2018, and for the purposes shown in Exhibit A, are hereby appropriated as stated in Exhibit A, and that's dated the 20th day of June, 2018. And I think in the packet was Exhibit A.
Okay. Let me just say before we get a motion on this issue that the budget committee, including the three commissioners, met for 1 week and 1 day. And
2 days.
That was 1 week and 2 days?
Monday and Wednesday.
Oh, okay. Anyway, at the conclusion of that, the entire budget committee, including the three commissioners, voted unanimously to approve this budget. So I went and checked it.
I don't believe that's correct, but it's here nor there. I believe Commissioner Boyce voted no and said he reserved the right to, or something to that effect, to change his
Thank you,
vote.
Commissioner Huxley.
Is that correct?
That is my recollection.
It's mine too.
It's been a long time ago.
Okay, well, bottom line, I'm looking for a motion to approve the 2018-19 budget. Adopt the budget as Louise Kallstrom stated.
I will second for discussion purposes.
Oh, we didn't get the motion.
Oh, I'll motion to approve as just read by Finance Director Colstrom.
Okay, do we have a second? I'll second that. Okay, discussion?
Okay, discussion. Again, as we went through the budget process, opposed certain of the major items. One was the $481,000 transfer from the road fund. One was the addition of the county taxpayers contributing an additional $1,200 per month, or per year rather, for increased health insurance. And I have a question for, well, and a third I never did, although I've had numerous discussions with, and finally a meeting with Administrator Schroeder on the $220,000 line item that was on the initial two-page budget message that we were given on May 7th, I believe, was the first meeting. We had, I have on the final budget, as I recall, last year, we had a two-page on the proposed budget. There was a two-page budget message, and as I recall, the last fiscal year, there was in the final budget there was 5 or 6 or 7 pages in a final budget message, and nobody or none of the commissioners, I speak for myself, I had not seen it until the budget was passed. My question for Finance Director or the Budget Officer, Colstrom, on this final proposed budget, is there a much more lengthy budget message in that document?
The budget message is presented with the proposed budget. It is included in all versions of the budget, the proposed, the approved, and the adopted. It is not changed.
So it was separate from the two-page message then? You're saying it was in the original budget or the original proposed budget? Is that what you're saying?
There is one budget message per year. I'm not sure what you're asking. I'm not sure where. The last year's budget message was a lot lengthier. I agree, but it was the proposed budget of last year, and it was also in the approved budget.
So the budget message, however long it is, that it is in the original proposed
and carries
budget,
through. It doesn't change.
But is second or is primary to the two-page. They are not one and the same messages.
I don't know what you're talking about, Commissioner Huxley. One budget message per year. There's one last year. It was lengthy. That's for last year's budget. This for the 17-18 years budget.
On May 7th, we had we were provided a two-page budget message.
Was May 7th our first meeting?
Yes.
That's the budget message for this year, period.
Okay, so it was a two-page, it is a two-page, it's the same document that we received. Okay, you answered my question.
Yeah, there
was a correction in the year on the second paragraph on that document.
Pardon me?
There was a correction on the year.
Yeah, we did correct it during that meeting.
Okay, so one and the same. Okay, yes. Thank you.
Commissioner Boyce?
Well, thank you. Accountant Colstrom, this is excellent for the KISS principle. Keep it simple and straightforward. For the public, if they need more and additional detailed info, this is just easy to follow, and it's a summary of, as Commissioner Gold said, 8-9 days of very hard work for all 6 of us. So I'm just going to commend you on this, and it's well done, and it's just easy to follow, and I think a good public tool if needed, assuming it will be. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, call for the question.
No.
Aye.
Aye. So the budget passes.
So there's a second resolution.
Okay.
This is in the matter of categorizing and imposing property taxes for the 2018-2019 fiscal year. Whereas Curry County needs to impose property taxes in order to balance the 2018-19 fiscal year budget, and whereas the Budget Committee approved the .5996 per thousand tax rate in the 2018-19 fiscal year budgets. Now therefore be it resolved that the Curry County Board of Commissioners hereby imposes the taxes provided for in the adopted budget at the rate of .5996 per thousand of assessed value with the county for operations, and be it resolved that the Curry County Board of Commissioners hereby categorize the tax year 2018-19 upon the assessed value of all taxable properties within the county as follows: general government for property taxes, .5996 per thousand, dated the 20th day of June 2018.
Okay, do we have a motion to categorize and impose the property tax as stated by Louise Kallstrom?
So moved, Madam Chair.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Call for the question?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Moving on, we're getting pretty close here. Lucas Lane nuisance allegations.
No, look at the time.
This is, 11:30.
All over the place.
Sorry. Okay, we'll go back to the regular agenda. This is going to be a back and forth today. Okay, first, we need to get a motion to approve the consent calendar as amended. Did we do that already or no?
Yes, we did. And we had pulled out 2 of the minutes, and D, C, E, and H.
So let's go back to the pullouts. First of all, we're pulling out the minutes of May 2nd.
Yes.
So we
Yeah.
did pass
Yeah, you
the
did.
agenda,
You did.
that consent
As
calendar
amended.
as amended.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's right.
Okay,
Yep.
okay,
We're just going so much back and forth
Okay.
that this old brain doesn't
okay.
follow it all the way, so. Okay, so looking back at the May 2nd meeting,
Madam Chair. I
Yes.
need to speak to both of them real quickly in the interest of time here.
okay?
May 2nd was 5 pages. June 13th was almost 5 pages, or 4.5, whatever. Just repeating what I have basically a mild protest in months past, that now we're within the last 4 or 5 months we hired an additional person to spend the time, valuable staff time, to summarize meetings in too lengthy of a process. So I just want to repeat that. I'm very thankful and happy that we've caught up on the minutes, and I think that's a tribute to the additional person. But I think over time, this is something that Staff Starbird and Staff Jesuit can do, and I will always be promoting 2 to 3 pages, because again, we have the video backup, which is very reliable, and it just gives a full and complete and accurate story with no different interpretation, generally speaking. Thank you. That's all I have on that.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the minutes of May 2nd?
So
As
moved,
written.
Madam Chair.
We want to do these individually then?
The 2 that were pulled out, yeah, we need to do those.
Okay, so I will second that motion.
Any discussion? Call for the question.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Okay.
Madam Chair, I'll move that we approve the June 13th, 2018 minutes.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion? Call for the question.
Aye.
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 Okay, so we've taken care of all the minutes now. Yes.
If I may, just a comment to Commissioner Boyce's reference to we always have the videos as backup. Videos are not recognized as permanent backup. Minutes are a permanent record, and the Oregon administrative rules go so far as to say that once a permanent written record is complete, you have one year after that time you may destroy the videos
You're not
or audio records. So
Commissioner Boyce?
You're not recommending that we destroy the videos, are you?
there will be a point that, because of sheer volume of everything, that audio and video records will either deteriorate and be discarded or they will be destroyed. That's the reason they have Oregon administrative rules to do that.
And you've heard me say, and it is quite valid that at the state capital level, they have videos, they have no written documents. I don't understand, maybe I need to further research, why they would have a different requirement for subsidiaries or political subdivisions of the state to have different requirements. So,
Okay, probably before we further comment on this, we're going to have a state law change in order to change what we do. So I can't see spending any more time on this.
Well, you just cut me off, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, moving to item 4B, which is intergovernmental service agreement contract for ORMAP services.
I just
Commissioner
had one
Huxley?
question, and it's for
Assessor Colin?
Assessor Colin. Could you come up and just, one question was, what's the approximate annual cost to your office for those services? For those mapping services?
I wish you'd asked me that during the budget session, because it actually has outlined what the costs have been for the last 10 years. But if memory serves, those costs have been as high as $18,000-ish in the last 10 years, and maybe even as low as $6,000 or $7,000. I do think that this year we're tracking pretty close to the cost being in that $10,500 range. That's for fiscal year 17-18.
That was because I recall, but again from memory, that it was somewhere in around 1,000 or so a month in the invoices in the past that I had seen, and I hadn't seen all of them. So that would make sense from what you just said. Okay, thank you.
It just depends on what's happening with development. I just saw in the news that nationwide housing starts are up quite a bit. If that trend takes over in Curry County, and if people start subdividing more properties, then we're going to be spending more money in this line item.
Okay, any other further questions? Commissioner Boyce?
Terrific point there. And of course, to have housing starts, that's the biggest part of the economy. In some areas, they need lumber. And so that will help our mills here, and a win-win all the way around. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so do I have a motion to approve item 4B, which is the intergovernmental service agreement contract number 3704?
I'll make that motion, Madam Chair.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Call for the question?
Aye.
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 Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, going to item 4C, which is clear ballot software license and services upgrade agreement. Commissioner Huxley, I think you
Yeah,
had
and
some
this
comments.
is a general comment for agreements via the software license or a contract for somebody to perform certain services. Typically on resolutions, and I think ordinances also, and orders, there's a buy-off regardless of what the scope of the resolution or order or ordinance is. There's typically, I believe, a buy-off by county council as to form at the bottom of each one of those documents. And my question is, especially because of some of these agreements that we have, and we have one here today, I think that's 120 or 130 or 140 pages.
That's the health care.
For health care. I don't read 140 pages on something like that because I wouldn't understand it if I did. I could spend the next
Well, you could sleep
month
better.
trying to research and all of that. So my question is it make sense for there to be some recognition or something similar to what we have on resolutions and so forth, to where there's at least a sign-off from the county attorney on those? That's my question.
That makes sense. Council Huddle?
Excuse me, thanks, Madam Chair. So, one place where it was uniformly done, so Commissioner Huxley's right, usually on orders, there's an approval as to form, but that's usually approval as to form of the order. And then our county contracting code requires county council to approve all contracts. And then in the previous administration, John Hitt changed our AGRS. Every AGRS used to have at the bottom of it approved by county council review. And so John Hitt changed the AGRS form to remove that. And so there's not a place for county council to indicate review and approval of the AGRS subject matters on the items. And that's where it's been contained universally on every AGRS. That's been removed by John Hitt. Maybe we want to talk about putting that back in. I did review the Clear Ballot software license and services agreement. Now, my review is simply for whether it's a legal contract or not whether it's a very advantageous or has a imbalance. The law allows contracts to be imbalanced. One of the things, and I have looked at both agreements, all the hundreds of pages of the OHA one, as well as this contract with Clear Ballot. It's very technical. It talks about source codes, things like that, but some of the key phrases of it, they have limited warranties, so we are agreeing that our remedies are going to be limited. That's a fairly common provision, and so that is lawful. The one where really it was interesting to me, and let me try to get to it. This is going to show up on page sorry about this. This is good. So for me, one of the things I look at, and on page 27 and 28 of the contract, it talks about the governing law, and this said it would be, the choice of law would be Oregon law. Sometimes on these contracts, you get terms that say, you know, this will be handled in New York City and things like that. So those are something I usually try. That's where I try to step in and really put my foot down and say, if we're going to have to fight about this contract, we want to fight, you know, in Oregon using Oregon law. Otherwise, we're really at an extreme disadvantage if we have to go somewhere else. I can't practice anywhere else. So that was one of the main things I looked at with this. Otherwise, again, there's some favorable provisions that these companies have in there to limit their responsibilities, very similar to warranties. You know, we'll only pay replacement costs, those kind of things. So I did look at this contract. I did say it was legal. That was, again, my bare minimum, and I focused on that choice of law provision when I reviewed this one, and I'll be happy to talk about the OHA contract as well when that time comes, unless you want me to do it now.
Well, Commissioner Huxley.
So would it be beneficial, I think it might, or would, if we add that check and balance back into the agenda?
You know, it's something I noticed. I think it would be beneficial, and it's very common to have every agenda item looked at by and have an indication that it was approved by legal counsel. I'm not sure why John Hitt removed it, but he did. So again, it makes sense to me. I didn't insist on it. It didn't stop me from reviewing the items, but I just didn't have a place to indicate, you know, that I had.
Well, I know I would feel more confident about voting on something if I knew you'd given your seal of approval.
Okay.
Personally.
As I would.
All right. Well, we can. It sounds like you're giving direction to staff to include that back in there. I don't think you need a. I don't think you need a motion.
Okay.
That's
so
a
we
consensus.
don't need a motion.
No.
I think
Okay.
I see.
That's his direction.
That was a
Administrator
good
Schroeder
point.
nodding
Thank you
his
for
head
bringing
there.
that up.
Yep.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the Clear Ballot software license and services upgrade agreement?
I will motion to approve as written.
Second? I'll second that. Any discussion? Call for the question?
Aye.
Aye.
I thought you said when you said second, you second. This is not my good ear, sorry.
Oh.
No, I'm kidding.
Are you getting old like the rest of us? Okay, no, I'm not supposed to say anything. Okay,
okay.
moving on. 4C, no, we did that. 4E. 4E is OHA 2017 to 2019 IGA financing of public health services amendment. And Council Huddle, did you have kind of the same question on that, Commissioner?
Well, I
Huxley?
had also, my question or reason for pulling is, do we need to give signature or authority to a particular individual when I looked at that one? That was another part of that review question.
So if I could, again, the law requires a vote of 2 out of 3 commissioners. Oftentimes agreements will have all the commissioners sign it. The general protocol is when it's not stated that designated signature authority, the default is the chair, but once the record indicates a valid vote of 2 of the 3 commissioners, then it's been authorized. The signing is essentially indicating the authority. But our protocol has been to have all commissioners sign. You could say signature authority to the chair. That would be okay. If I could, I personally had a question on this. And this was prepared, I believe, by the state, but it's a 3-party agreement between the state, Curry County, and Curry Community Health, our LHPA, by contract. And this has signatures for the state and Curry County, but it didn't have a signature spot for the LHPA. I thought it was interesting. I didn't want to hold up the contract for that reason, but you know, going forward, I will talk to the state and ask them why they don't include the LHPA. And I know Ben Cannon's here. He may have something to say about that. He may also talk about and for this contract, basically there's a reduction. The biggest reduction seems to be in the tobacco line item, and really it's an adjustment downward of the money that we'll be receiving to administer the programs as identified. And it's amendment number 7 or 8 something, and so it was really, I don't want to call it pro forma, but I didn't want to, you know, throw a wrench in the gears about that. So but I will talk to the state. I didn't talk to Ben ahead of time about my question there either, so I don't know if he's prepared to answer that, but really it's the state prepared this. Is that, yeah, okay.
Yeah?
Yeah, this is actually it is the old contract. So prior to July 1st, 2017, when it was a 3-party contract, it is an amendment to a sunsetted contract.
Yeah.
Due to the fact that public health is funded on a 2-year cycle, and because we went to a 2-party IGA, which is also on the agenda today as well, it's just an amendment. The funding is set for that 2-year cycle, and because we ended that old 3-party agreement, this old amendment, this is the 20th amendment to that old contract, is to have any carryover money that we had unspent on that old contract, so that we can use it throughout the 2-year cycle of public health contract, if that makes sense. So it is a 3-party contract, but it's the old one that we had before, and it's done and over with, but the reductions there were actually to carry over money from that contract into the new contract, which we have an amendment for today.
So do we have any further questions of Ben Cannon? Commissioner Huxley?
Well, okay, so, and I understand what County Council was saying, if a majority of the board votes, you know, but typically, right or wrong, typically what we've done on a small percent, very small percent of these agreements, if it's only a signature line for one individual, which is the case here for the county, we have addressed it as signature authority to whomever it may be, just for the record, because there's not even room here for 2 signatures from board members. So it doesn't have to be the chair. We've had exceptions where it wasn't the chair, it was whoever the commissioner was that was working with the parties. So just so I would say just in that, whatever, either call it signature authority to the chair, or I see county council has a
Council,
suggestion.
Well, no, that's okay. I just wanted to kind of give another, I don't want to call it an option or a practice, but if you recall from the consent agenda on the community development item, it said that the milers were not included in the agenda packet materials. It said they're on file for review and signature for public inspection. Some places don't even include all 100 pages of the agreements in the packet, and what I've seen done in the past is, for instance, I'm more familiar with the practice of having an order approving any given contract, and so once you have an order, commissioners sign the order, and then the contract just gets signed because it's been approved by an order, and you have the orders, the evidence of the approval on everything. But again, we do things differently. There's different ways to do it. There's more than one way to be lawful and legal as well, and I'm not trying to, put my foot down and say we have to do this or we have to do that. I'm just trying to see a way to get to getting things moved and approved in one of the several lawful fashions to do that.
Commissioner Huxley?
So to take that further, would you say that, what you're saying is that, let's just say where in this case it's a 100+ page document, that the order could say incorporate this by reference? Is that what you're
basically
saying?
it
Not
would
have that document.
It typically
there.
says the order would approve the document and say such document is on file at the county administrator's office for review and inspection. And then if anybody wanted to see it, and then, and Mr. Schroeder and I have talked about this as far as having more work sessions. Oftentimes with large agreements, it'll be the agreement will be the result of some preparation, usually a work session. Again, it's not a requirement, a lot of different ways to do it, but I think, I don't want to speak for him, but I thought Mr. Schroeder and I had talked about he's thinking of doing more work sessions on some of these items so that we don't have this kind of discussion in the meetings, and that when you see the item, you've had a little heads up and you're prepared to do that. So anyway, like I said, a lot of different legal ways to do it. I think it's a work in progress. I don't know if Mr. Schroeder has anything he wants to add to that or not, but...
No, I think in the case where you have one signature, that you just would make a motion to assign somebody to sign on behalf of the county. There are counties where the administrator will sign after a board have directed him to sign something. Obviously, that's, there are a number of different ways to skin the cat, and you can do however you want. In this case, from a legal requirement, as John said, the minutes will show that you approved this document. If there's any questions on it, regardless who signs it, the minutes will show that it was approved.
Okay.
Is it enough for the board to know that I've taken their comments. Do you anticipate perhaps some refinement to some of the different ways we do it to make more uniformity as much as we can? Is that...
Yes, actually, I was going to bring up in my administrator's report, I'm actually researching changing how you do the packets. I've checked in with our web server, I've checked in with our IT service, and I've checked in with staff. One of the things that I will propose to you, and I'll let you trial run it without having any changes, is I want to use Google Docs. So instead of having a 372-page document, we basically would have a Google Docs that would be shared with all the public online. And if you just wanted to look at item number 14, you want to look at your contract, people just click on that and just look at it. Instead of having to download this whole thing, it just flows easier for not only the public to follow along, but also for commissioners to read what they want to read, and also for a review of staff to say, yeah, we're in this document and we're just reviewing that one thing.
The only other thing, to get back on track, it sounds like Commissioner Hudson would be comfortable saying signature authority to the chair on this one, since there's only place for one, and that would allow us to move forward on this item with further discussion of overall changes later.
Okay, so do I have a motion to approve the OHA 2017 to 19 IGA financing of public health services
So moved, Madam Chair.
amendment? Is that the one we're on?
You're on E.
Yeah, that's what I just said. Okay.
Yes, I would second, but with this addition that it would have to give signature authority to the chair.
Okay. So are you okay with that?
No. I want all three commissioners, at least in the next few months, to see how things go, to be responsible to jointly sign any agreement. So I would be a no vote, Madam Chair.
Okay. Any further discussion? Call for the question?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Okay, the next one is 4H, is the supplemental budget, Fund 1.11, Commissioners. Louise?
Could I just ask a point of clarification?
Yeah, I want to vote for the budget, but against the...
Sorry, right.
Yeah.
So if I
Doesn't
could, it sounded like Commissioner Boyce opposed the friendly amendment of having signature authority to chair, and that he approves this agreement, but wants all three commissioners to sign this agreement. I don't think he was voting against this agreement. I don't want to split hairs here, but we had
That's important, I think.
Well, possibly, let's vote for the
All right.
agreement first. Let's go back. Okay, Commissioner Boyce made a motion to approve the agreement. Commissioner Huxley seconded it with a possible friendly amendment. The amendment was discounted. So we can go back and vote on the amendment in just a minute. How's that? So what we're voting on, let's revote. We're just voting on whether we want to approve the OHA 2017 to 19 IGA Financing of Public Health Services Amendment 148007. So a motion was made. I think you seconded it, but you wanted to have an amendment about the signatures.
Well, okay, but you either, and I understand what county council said, but you either make a motion to approve the document as written
And that was what the original motion was.
or not. So I'm still a little confused.
Okay, so we're going to
Well,
do
two
two
separate-
things.
excuse me.
We're going to do two
Yeah.
separate motions. The
That's
first
simple.
motion will be to approve the document as written, and then the second motion will be who will sign, who will be authorized to sign that.
That said very well.
Okay? So let's do the first motion. Do we approve the amendment, or I mean the agreement?
So moved, Madam Chair, and I assume we need a new motion. But do we need to unwind the other motion?
I don't
First.
think we've ever had two motions.
Well, actually, we did.
You had
Commissioner
a
Boyce-
motion
on a-
and a proposed amendment, and then you took a vote, and
Okay.
there wasn't an acceptance of the amendment as far as I know.
Can we remove, Chair Gold, can we retract everything and start from scratch? then?
Sure.
Sure, let's do that.
Fine, good.
Okay.
Forget the confusion. Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the OHA 2017 to 19 IGA Financing of Public Health Services Amendment 148,007?
007. Yes, we have that
Well-
motion, Madam Chair.
Okay. A second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay. Call for the question. I don't want to discuss it
Aye.
any further.
Aye.
Aye.
And it has one signature that
Well,
we just
no,
approved.
not yet.
You restate what the
Oh,
what the
as
motion
written,
was.
wasn't it? As
Then you got to vote on who's going to sign it.
Okay, so let's vote on who's going to sign it. Do we have a motion to determine who's going to sign that agreement?
Madam Chair, as has been customary in the past, all three signatures from each commissioner required on that agreement.
Okay, do we have a second to that motion? Hearing no second, the motion dies. Do we have any other motion for signature?
A motion, Chair, to have on this document that's presented signature authority to the chair because it has one line item for a county signature. As we have many over the years, many are just like this, and we assign it to either the chair or the appropriate commissioner.
Okay, so
For
we'll
one
simplify the
signature.
motion. Give the chair the authority to sign the agreement.
Signature authority to the chair.
Okay, a second? I'll second it. Any further discussion? Call for the question.
Aye.
No.
Aye. Okay, got through it.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
I'm still confused, but that's
I
okay.
think it's clear now.
No, it's pretty clear.
It's clear.
Yeah, it's clear.
Okay, now we're moving on to 4H, the Supplemental Budget Fund 1.11 for Commissioners. Louise Kallstrom. And I think Commissioner Huxley, you were the one that had some questions. You want to bring those
Well,
up?
I have some questions, but I'm open it to Louise Kallstrom first, and then I'll make my comments.
Okay.
Louise Kallstrom, County Accountant. This supplemental budget is to transfer funds from the general fund to the Commissioner's Fund to adjust the budget for anticipated payroll costs. That will be as of 6/30/2018, and also to establish a revenue budget line to receive reimbursement for travel costs. So I'm not sure what your question is, but go ahead.
Okay, Commissioner Huxley?
Okay. No. For some time, I've had questions on basically the prevailing document here is the budget appropriations document in the budget. Okay.
What page is that on this?
I don't know. In the adopted budget for the 2017-18 year, it was on page 21 of that budget. It's similar to the document that was in the
Exhibit A.
exhibit.
I got you.
Okay.
Page 76 in the packet.
Got it.
So, because there were two separate categories here, if you will, or expenditure groups, there is an expenditure group for personal services, and there's an expenditure group for materials and services. And not on all of the adopted department budgets, but on several, it's broken down that way.
It's actually all of them.
So I contacted and have had, several conversations with the Department of Revenue, one of the senior leads there with the Department of Revenue, as far as how is this treated, because in this case we had an appropriated amount of, what did we say, $8,524 for materials and services and $115,317 for personal services. In this appropriation or supplemental budget, we combined the two categories, and that makes, just because of the math, that makes the increase of the materials and services, when you combine it with the personal services, it makes that change under 10%. If you have that as a standalone and you take, in this case, let's just call it a $4,000 increase in materials and services. And let's say materials and services was $8,000. A $4,000 increase would be a 50% increase. An increase over 10% will put you into a different statute in budget law on how you have to address a supplemental budget. If you group take the 115,000, add the 8,000, and those two are what, 123,000, 4,000 is less than 10%, it puts you into a different group. So I corresponded, I've spoken with and I've corresponded with individuals at the Department of Revenue, and
Okay, so it's the materials and services that needs to be brought back because it's over 10%.
with that position and that opinion, that's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. There's two. There would be two then, because you had the other, which is less than 10%. So there would ultimately
Well, that could just be a regular supplemental budget like we're doing
That's
right
correct.
now.
That's correct.
If it's under 10%.
That's correct.
So our Chair and Huxley, are you saying that the county is not allowed to use an organizational unit in a budgetary budget amendment? or you're saying it's allowed to go down to the particular category within an organization?
They have, and it was the opinion of the Department of Revenue that because of also, and they referenced, which I was not familiar with, an Oregon administrative rule, their conclusion was, at the end of the second paragraph, this leaves no interpretation other than the appropriation limitation is intended to apply to the expenditure category, i.e. materials and services, i.e. personnel services.
Okay, so if we had an expenditure category of within materials and supplies, let's say, and it had 15 different line items in it, we could move things within those 15 line items.
My understanding, that's correct.
That's
That's
your
correct.
interpretation.
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct. And I think that was their conclusion also.
Okay.
That's correct.
But the 10% over or under, or just
Then
over,
you're into a different statute.
can only be within
An Oregon
the
budget
big
law.
category,
That's correct.
like personnel services or
Okay.
materials and services.
Okay, so I have a question for Louise. Louise, if we were to, obviously the timelines for public hearings, it would put a public hearing sometime in July due to the publication dates of 10-day notice and having it in the paper.
No, you need to read the statute.
You said we had to do a public hearing.
It refers to what we've had public hearings before where we just added, or we had a public hearing that was in the middle of an agenda. We didn't have to do all 10 days and all you're talking about there. But the statute spells that out, just as the statute for this item, not as a public hearing, spells it out.
Okay, I guess I'm confused on that. It's my understanding when you do a public hearing, we did a public hearing for the budget here today, we had to have it in the paper. You're saying it's not a budgetary public hearing?
Correct. You need to read the statute.
Okay.
And that's where they've specified, or I specified, it's instead of 294,471 is a supplemental budget in certain areas. Okay, notwithstanding, well, it goes into the notice, and then, which is what this one was, is because it was less than 10%. On 473 is essentially greater than 10%, and then there's some rules to follow there.
So we'll have to review this material. As Council Huddle had said earlier, we're anticipating we might have a need for a meeting on the 27th to clean up some issues, provided we don't have to have a 10-day notice. Once we Huddle reviews this, we could address this issue at that time. Louise, would you think that would be an appropriate response to this particular request?
I have not memorized the rules for doing a supplemental budget, and I mean for requiring the presence of the budget committee to be reconvened. I'd have to review that, so I don't remember if you have to do that or if there's certain circumstances where you can do it without a supplemental budget without reconvening.
Yeah, you may have to reconvene the budget committee is what you're saying at some point.
I am not sure, because I think there's something in there that says that with a public hearing, we don't have to reconvene the budget committee for the amount over the 10% adjustment.
It's a short subsection
So,
in that statute.
and I'd like to ask Commissioner Huxley, is what you're saying is we can hold a public hearing right now and then no?
No, but I just was using that as an example to Administrator
Because
Schroeder, you know, is that we've named some
if
things.
we have to if we have to have a public hearing or reconvene the budget committee, we no longer have time to do either one of those before June 30th. And if that's the case, then I would just say do not approve this supplemental budget, and we'll have to get an odd comment for being over our appropriation level, because there's no time if you do not approve it this week, and we have to notice everything. There's no time to do it before June 30th, and I have to have a supplemental by June 30th or it's no good.
So question, could we approve part of it, the personal services part?
You
but not
could do
the
that part.
materials and services?
I suppose you could do that part.
Okay. Commissioner Boyce, you had a comment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Administrator Schroeder, 27th workshop, right? So that would give us a chance to...
We can't notice a public hearing before, it
The
had to be
10-day?
in the paper today if we're going to have a public hearing.
Yeah, so, and that's where I'd have to review Huxley's material to say if it is a public hearing, my experience is you have to notice that a public hearing has to be noticed 10 days before a public hearing is. I'm not aware of the fact that you could just call a public hearing. Otherwise, you could just call a public hearing right now.
Well,
and
I
have that
believe,
if that's not a
I believe
requirement.
it's 5 days,
Okay.
no less than 5 days.
Okay.
However, we have a weekly paper. And so if it's not noticed
Yeah.
in this weekly paper, then it's not noticed in time.
So part of the concern is by the end of the year here, we have to have these funds balanced. If we don't have the funds balanced, we're going to get a note on our audit that will say, you guys didn't end your year with a balanced fund. And our intent here is to make this a balanced fund before we end, and that's what the staff's trying to do.
Commissioner Huxley?
I would suggest that you read the two statutes before you assuming too many things, not knowing what the statute says.
I would agree. Like I say, I'm giving my recollection of what public
In front of me. Notice budget committee meetings, it's no more than 30 days and no less than, I believe it's 5 days. But
So
with
if
a
it's-
weekly paper, you have to have it in a week before because it has to be published.
Well, I think in the pilot, you don't have to have it in a week before. If you got it in
You'd have to have it in today, and they've
Yeah, if
already
you got it
published
in
today's
today.
paper.
No, but then it could be published Saturday's paper, and that would be 5 days before. I just counted on my hand.
How many hands?
Just
How many
one.
fingers?
That took 5.
Let me...
Yeah, Commissioner Huxley?
I think this was referenced as the applicable statute for this notice was ORS 294.471. And,
I don't have anything in front of
And
me.
in that, it says, I'm just reading here, supplemental budget may not extend beyond the end of the fiscal year or budget period during which it's submitted. 3A, if the supplemental budget differs by 10% or less, and I'm not paraphrasing, but I'm not reading everything in here, the governing body of the municipal corporation may adopt the supplemental budget at a regular meeting of the governing body. B, subsection B, 3, subsection B, notice of a regular meeting convened pursuant to paragraph A of this subsection, including a statement that the supplemental budget will be considered at the meeting, must be published not less than 5 days before the meeting. Now that's for the one today, okay? Additional expenditures contained in supplemental budgets described may not be made unless the governing body of the municipal corporation enacts appropriate ordinances, appropriation ordinances or resolutions authorizing the expenditures. The ordinance or resolution must state the need for the purpose and the amount of the appropriation. So to at least my interpretation, and only my interpretation, of the statute that was referred to or used for this notice, there was no notice for this that went in the newspaper, okay? There was a notice that went in the newspaper to approve the adopted budget, but not for this
Well, there was for the agenda,
supplemental
wasn't
budget. No, not for this supplemental budget. So I'm
Okay,
just
that's
saying
true.
is that
Madam Chair.
there's...
It was our interpretations that the
You-
supplemental budget chain was at the unit level, basically was less than 10%, not the individual category under a unit. And that was our interpretation. I did talk.
No, that's, I never discussed that. When he's saying that they were combined, this supplemental budget does not combine these personnel services or materials and services, although it does add them up at the bottom for balancing. I did not combine anything in here, and what Commissioner Huxley is saying is that the total budget for materials and services is 8,000 budget.
8 and change.
$8,524, of which a $4,000 change is 50%. And he is correct. That is correct, and that should be a, it's over a 10% adjustment to an appropriation level. So I've never combined any appropriation levels for this purpose, and I just did not look at that piece when I put together a supplemental budget. It does require that we do either reconvene or public notice this supplemental budget in order to be within the law to adopt it.
So it's not 10% of the Board of Commissioners budget, it's 10% of just
The appropriation line, I believe.
one smaller line item.
No, it's not the line item. It's the appropriation level. The appropriation level is by category, whether it's personnel services, materials and services, capital outlay, transfers. There's different categories that the county uses as in their appropriation levels.
If you were under budget on personal services, you can't slide that into materials and
No.
say it's going to balance out. Okay, that's where I misunderstood.
No.
Okay, thank you.
You can move it around. I mean, if you looked at personnel services and the cost for PERS was over budget in that line item, but if you look down at the bottom for all personnel services, it's still positive. You don't need to do a supplemental budget to a line item. You need to stay within the appropriation level, which is the total of all personnel services.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so what would you suggest, Louise? We want to be within the law.
Well, I think that maybe what we can do is, I think we have two choices. One is, we really would, and we have discussed this before, and actually nothing has happened on it. I really would like to reconvene the budget committee and have them approve the last year's minutes that were presented to them on Wednesday, May 23rd, so that we could get last year's minutes approved. And I would also like, at that point, maybe presenting that reconvened budget committee with this particular piece of this supplemental budget for the total materials and services, and have it happen at the same meeting. So if we have to reconvene them anyway for approving last year's minutes, we just have them approve this supplemental budget too.
So question, if they approve the supplemental budget, does it have to come back to the commissioners after that, or that's that?
I believe that's that.
Okay, the only reason I ask is because the budget committee approved our big budget for next year, and then it had to come back to the commissioners, so.
I've never actually had to take a supplemental budget back to a budget committee.
I think we'd want to check on that before.
So I don't know if you'd have to do an adoption after.
If I could, Madam Chair.
Council Huddle?
Thanks. Can we just continue this item for further discussion later into this meeting? Because I would like a time to look at this materials that Commissioner Huxley submitted over lunch. I'm just not ready to even come to the conclusion that we need to reconvene the budget committee to adopt this supplemental budget yet. So I'd just like to look at everything a little more slowly than in the last 10 minutes that we've had.
I think that's reasonable.
We also have some speakers here. Been waiting.
Speakers for what?
Roadmaster Christensen and Community Development
I
Director.
didn't see any other
You go on the agenda,
public-
man?
Are they on the agenda?
Huh?
Okay. when we get to it, we'll get to it. But I agree with Council Huddle. We should just postpone this item till after lunch. Does that sound reasonable to the rest of you? Okay.
Thank you.
Good. Thanks, Louise.
Okay. Just to remind you, you have a public hearing in
8 minutes.
11:30.
Yep, got you. Okay, so I think we've taken care of everything that was pulled from the consent agenda. Now we've got Richard Christensen, Roadmaster, and all of you, at least I got to speak to Richard one-on-one about all of these issues. I don't know whether the rest of you did. Well, come on up, Richard. Were you able to talk to the other commissioners individually on these issues?
Good morning, Madam Chair and fellow commissioners. I was able to speak with Court Boyce, Commissioner
Okay.
Boyce, and yourself.
Okay.
I dropped in yesterday and to try to get some clarification on what we're trying to accomplish today.
Okay. So basically what you're trying to do is get an agreement with the commissioners to go ahead and purchase these big items, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I have 5 things on the agenda. One is to rent to own a pneumatic tire roller for chip seal, and one is to purchase a pneumatic tire roller for chip seal.
Are you mic'd?
Excuse me. I'll start over. I have 5 things today. 2 of them are for purchasing equipment. One is for approving a contract with Tidewater to do a 2-mile overlay on Ocean View and also Olson Lanes and Harbor, and also to approve rock and oil for this year's in-house chip seal budget. So the 2 pieces of equipment, these 2 pieces of equipment, in the past we've only rented one. I have in our budget that you just approved a 5-year plan for the purchase of equipment, but also to rent equipment. In the past, we've spent $10,000 to $15,000 a year to rent equipment, and we've been doing that for 30 plus years. What I'm looking, and now we're looking at doubling the amount of mileage that we're doing in chip seal. That cost will double. So what I'm looking at doing is getting control of that cost for future years, that this equipment will last 30, 50 years. And so I'm looking at buying one outright for $94,000, one rent to own for 7 years at $96,000. The reason why it's a little bit more expensive, one came from the factory with the heavier counterweights and extra tires on it, and the other one was done at the dealership. And both of these pieces of equipment are very hard to acquire. Every year it's very difficult trying to manage a chip seal project, especially now. Today was just the budget was approved. Typically we start our chip seals the 2nd week of July. It has very little time to get all this equipment, all these materials, all these schedules coordinated, because this work has to be done. We have to have this work completed by August, because then the striping crew comes in, which is another contract that we negotiate that you approved last Board of Commissioners meeting. So what I'm trying to do is control the cost now, future costs, and to get to where we can work more efficiently and effectively with chip seal. Right now, our oil equipment and our rock distributing equipment can lay down those materials twice as fast as we can roll it. So just by buying this equipment, our work's going to be 25%, at least 25% more efficient. We're going to save 25% of the time. So a 4-week program, we'll get it done in 3 weeks. So we saved right there. But also we've got control of future costs of all this equipment. So that's what I'm trying to do here. And there's no, excuse me.
Well, I'm all for getting the equipment. My only concern was that you were going to pay $15,000 in interest when we don't have to, after talking to you. Were you able to look at the budget and see about, rather than rent to own, which would be $15,000 a year, just owning outright. I hate interest, hate it.
I agree. Yeah, I was trying to work within the budgets that the roadmasters previously had all these years to kind of keep status quo. So, but I have looked at the budget, and there is money under cap outlay. The total line, we do have the extra $90,000 in there because of we're not going to be able to work on the Morrow Bridge this year. I had put $200,000 in cap outlay for bridge improvements. We just received a letter 3 weeks ago from the state saying that the downstream bridge is now derated. So we can't fix the upstream one till we get the downstream one fixed. So it put a really big blockage in that program. So anyway, so we're reaching out for engineering right now to see what the repair will be or replacement for the downstream bridge. So I'm not going to be moving forward with an IGA with the state for $200,000. So there is an extra, at minimum, $200,000 in this year's capital outlay budget that would cover this, where we would be able to buy it outright, I believe.
Yeah, I would strongly suggest doing that rather than renting it with an extra $15,000. So do we have a motion that the road department can purchase these two pieces of equipment? That would be A and B, and yeah, A and B. Yes.
Do we need to do them individually though?
Do we need individual motions?
And you have them separate. You have them listed separately.
Yeah, but we don't want to, Randall. No way.
Well,
What, isn't that for a purchase to own, or no?
Yeah, it's a rent to own, but what I'm hearing instead, commissioners would rather save the $15,000 in interest over the 7 years and buy it outright.
Right. So maybe a motion to buy those two pieces of equipment outright. Would that be okay? Council Huddle?
Thank you. You have an item in front of you which is a rent to own. I think the motion will be to deny that item. And then you have a second item to purchase this same piece of equipment.
Correct.
And then I think the appropriate thing would be for them,
Come back to another meeting?
well, we're already going to come back to another meeting. I mean, it would be cleanest. You could amend A, and you could amend A to purchase instead of rent to own. That's another option.
Let's go for that.
Well, again, if you need a motion.
You need to get the equipment right
I
away.
really do. We're planning to
Okay.
start July 9th.
Okay, so do we have
Wait a
a
minute.
motion?
Here's a question.
thank
Oh.
you, Madam Chair.
Sorry.
That's only that's okay. That's only $2,000 a year interest. I think that's good use of your money, as opposed to, if I understand your recommendation correctly, buying outright now. I mean, I think the plan you and your staff put together is good. I mean, I've read this, and you can always come back and buy it if you want to extend that kind of capital outlay. So I think we just need to vote on the item 5A as is, and then go to the next issue. That would be my preference, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Commissioner
I had
Huxley?
a question. We said they're identical, but you said the costs are different for reasons which are not, important to my question. So if the costs are different, you can't just have an identical item.
We
Yeah.
don't have a proposal to purchase a second item. So it'd be
And
hard.
I agree with county council that if you're going to do that, I would think it would be changing from a purchase option, a rent purchase option, to a purchase is the different beast, completely different beast. Not just to say, well, we'll take care of all the language and we'll just approve it. Wow. Is this coming from the same supplier or ultimately a different vendor or a different?
I believe they're both being shipped to Oregon from Texas by the same vendor. The reason why they're different in cost, because one was shipped from the factory with the premium package of extra weight and extra tires, where the other one, the factory sent them the extra weight and tire, and the dealership had to install that. So that was the cost, the extra $1,500 or so in cost on the second unit.
So are they, you say they're being shipped already? Is that correct?
That's correct, and I let
Okay,
Caterpillar.
Okay, so that's with a commitment ultimately from you that, yeah, we're going to purchase it, get it going, and I'll take it to the board to get it approved. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. But
Right.
Is that effectively what
I had
occurred?
talked with Caterpillar Sales that all this, I was trying to move things forward, but I was committed to nothing. But I was going to try to sell it at today's meeting. It was in my budget. I hadn't known if my budget was approved yet. I just found out today my budget was approved. And so everything I was working on was on handshake deals, and I got all the documentation in place to bring it to this meeting as soon as I could.
So with the handshake, they committed to you to get it moving?
Yes.
Correct. So, okay. So I don't see that any time would really be lost because it's moving. If the board would so choose to purchase both and to bring back the correct contract to do that in a week, I don't see that you've really lost any time.
That would work. July 9th is our start construction.
And then we get the paperwork correct, as I absolutely agree with county council.
Maybe we could approve the one today, and then the other we could bring back.
Sure.
Yeah, so approve, make a motion to approve B, and then make a motion to reject A and bring it back to,
As a purchase at the next
as a
meeting.
purchase the next meeting.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so do we have a motion to approve buying the pneumatic tire roller purchase agreement, which was 5B?
I would motion, Chair, to approve that as written.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second?
I think we've discussed enough. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, then we're looking at A. Do we have a motion to bring back an agreement between the company that's selling this to purchase outright?
Madam Chair, I'm going to make a motion just to approve the tire roller rental agreement has been presented to us.
Do we have a second on that? Hearing no second, do we have a motion to buy it outright?
Well, I would
With
suggest that we remove, as
Just
I thought,
remove it?
remove item 5A from consideration, and then we just, if we could do that, then we could give board direction to bring back the purchase agreement at the next meeting. Right?
Well,
Yeah.
so
It just seems so complicated to me.
Yeah,
I mean.
so here's part of the issue. So then we're basically going out and not really, you're giving staff direction. But what happens if the board changes their mind by the next meeting? Then we're kind of delaying this whole thing. I'd rather see a vote that says direct staff to change to a purchase agreement and bring back to council next week as a regular vote, because that way the staff has firm
Well, we can
direction
vote.
from
We
the
can
county
vote.
board.
We could do that, or two votes, vote to remove and vote to
Yes.
bring back a purchase agreement.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm just a little protest here. I think it's micromanaging. He knows what he's doing, and I'm just surprised we're taking this amount of time. And back to the $2,100 a year for interest, I don't see any need to push him into that decision, or us into that decision. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Huxley?
Okay, I would motion to remove consideration of the rental agreement, item 5A.
A second? I'll second that. Call for the question?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, second motion?
Okay, I would motion to bring back at the next meeting for approval a purchase agreement for the piece of equipment that we just removed from the rental scenario for approval at the board meeting on the 27th.
Second? I'll second that. Call for the question?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. I don't know whether we
Is
can do this next
11:30
part. I know 11:30
I'd
we're
go
supposed to have.
Item 7D.
Okay, we're back to the public hearings. Sorry, Richard. Okay, Lucas Lane nuisance allegation. County Council huddle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll present from my seat here, and I would direct the board to packet page 133. That's the AGRS, or 132 is the AGRS. 133 is the memorandum. The memorandum describes the board has previously considered allegations that there was a nuisance from the public. They directed the county administrator to investigate. When I was acting as interim county administrator, I obtained a warrant and investigated. The facts are that the house actually appears okay. This is not a situation like Hamilton Lane where the house was a burned out shell from a house fire. This house appears okay. It is missing some skirting, and that indicates that there are animals, including rodents, which our code prohibits propagation of rodents. There is an accessory building on the structure, which I was accompanied in my investigation by the building official, John Pospisil, and he concurred that that accessory structure was useless or dangerous for any purpose, and our ordinance prevents that under 6.01030 sub 1G. And then again, the yard is overgrown with vegetation, but that's not a nuisance under our code. But our code does prohibit storage of vehicles, abandoned motor vehicles visible from the street, and they had an abandoned motor vehicle in there. That's 6.01030 sub 2 sub C. The report indicates notice, and I don't believe I had copies of the certified mail receipts that and I'm showing these to you, and I'll hand them to Mr. Jesuit for the record, but these are the certified mail receipts of our written notice of the hearing today. So those are for Mr. Jesuit. And then the folks who own this, Miss Rader and Triplet is another name, and that's Bonnie, and then her daughter is Julie. I don't know if they're here, but they have appeared at a prior meeting because they are also the owners of a Benham Lane property that we had a public hearing on. They appeared at that meeting and said that the mother wasn't having health issues or living at another property that they also own together. And then on the Benham Lane, they were surprised that they were still listed as the owners because they thought they had given it back to the bank. So this may be a similar circumstance to that. You can, take notice of your recollection of those representations. But really, I don't see them here. You can open the public hearing. The remedy that we're proposing, I don't believe demolishing the house is called for. There's photos of the house on page 136. But again, you can see there's been no one living in the house. They've had sewer disconnected since 2017. I think there's a similar situation where they are perhaps not even considering themselves owners, but the banks aren't taking the properties back, and I'm not even sure there's a bank loan on this property. And then again, there's missing skirting to show the animals living there, and then on page 140 is a picture of the outbuilding that is just completely dilapidated. So there's a proposed order declaring the nuisance, requiring them to remove the vehicle and the outbuilding and the piles of garbage. And that's the recommendation from staff. We should open the public hearing to hear from the owners or any other members of the public.
So are there any members of the public that wish to speak to this issue? Hearing none, I would propose that we get a motion to take care of this Lucas Lane nuisance as proposed by Council Huddle.
I would second that motion.
You need to give me a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was testing you. Would you buy that? No.
No, I wouldn't.
Then I would motion to proceed on the Lucas Lane nuisance allegations on item 7D as presented and recommended by County Council.
Second, Madam Chair, declaring a nuisance.
Any discussion? Call for the question.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that's taken
Work,
care
by the
of.
way.
Our next public hearing isn't until 1:30, so we're going back to Richard now. It's hard keeping everything straight today. Okay, so we're looking at item 5C, which is the Harbor Paving 2018 bid award.
Correct. Tidewater was low bid and the only bid we received for this project, and it is in our engineer's estimate, and it is in our approved road budget under cap outlay, and it's for 2 miles of paving on Ocean View and Olson Lane in Harbor.
So I have one question. Once we get our equipment, could you do that paving instead of putting it out towards Tidewater?
We couldn't do that form of paving, but instead, I would chip seal that road.
Okay.
For instance, this project, we're doing 2 miles of paving, which you end up with 20, 25 years of life. I would instead chip seal it. I get 11 miles instead of 2 miles, so I could do other roads, and I'd get 10 to 15 years, depending on quality. These 2 rollers that you're approving road department to purchase is going to really improve the quality of that work. So in the future road budgets, I would be looking at doing more chip seal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Commissioner Boyce?
In our discussions yesterday, the other 4 companies that you gave an opportunity to bid, I was able to communicate to you. I think it's important we have a balance between the county road department and private industry, and just the health of that. And
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. You had mentioned why you didn't get bids. Could you tell the board here your take, your perception on that?
It's the amount of work that's available out in the private sector and other jurisdictions. Tidewater materials are getting very difficult to obtain, and we're going to start reaching out for quotes earlier in the fall of each year instead of the springtime, because this year we were the last player to the game, and so a lot of people already had all their projects and materials already assigned out, and so Tidewater was the only bidder on this. They were also the only bidder on our rock supplies, and so what we're planning to do is forward our vendors our 5-year plan with quantities and materials that we need to give them a heads up, and also we're going to reach out to them possibly like in November every year or in the fall with requests for quotes for the materials we need the next fiscal year. So we're in early and we're able to lock in the materials.
I think that's a good idea. It's important to get more quotes. Get that.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's all I have, Madam Chair.
What were the
Commissioner Huxley.
roads that you said?
Olson Lane and Ocean View in
Oh.
Harbor.
Okay, I thought you said Pelican Bay Drive.
Yeah,
Sorry.
we're still working on that one.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the bid for the harbor paving?
So moved, Madam Chair.
A second?
I'll second that.
Call for the question?
Aye.
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 Okay, next we've got the chip rock quote. And you kind of alluded to this. There was only one bid, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And I have one question on this. Usually is Tidewater higher or lower than the other companies?
I'm not sure. I believe it's very competitive.
Is it? Okay.
It really has to do whether,
Can you give that information?
Yeah.
On like a sealed bid?
yeah, we do it on a sealed bid.
Yeah, so you
Yeah,
can.
after bids are open, you
Oh, yeah.
can.
Okay, thank
But
you.
I mean, they're
But they usually win the bids, correct? So they would be.
No,
lowest
I
bid.
believe Knife River has won in the past. And, you know, we have roads in the northern county
Okay,
that are
you're
closer
fine, you're
to Knife River, and in the southern county closer to Tidewater. and those logistics make it more cost effective for either one to give a better bid. And so, so that plays into it. And also, this rock that we're using, this 3/8 rock, is the exact same rock that they use for their asphalt mixes. And when they have, Knife River has contracts to do a huge amount of asphalt overlays, they're not going to give away their materials or sell it to us. And so that's why we got to move on these things earlier, so they can prepare.
Yeah, I totally agree with moving on it earlier. Much better to be prepared and proactive rather than reactive. Commissioner Boyce?
Just real quick, thank you again. Your supply for rock and gravel, and you mentioned that, and I heard that a couple years ago and then kind of forgot. So do you have kind of a long-range plan on that, or see, you know, how our county, either through your road department or private business, are going to be able to overcome that, or what's your thoughts on that?
My thought is with the 5-year plan, reaching out to all 4 local vendors,
good,
that maybe they would be willing to gear up to provide that specific type of material.
So,
kind of common around the state, I think. Thank you.
Do we have a motion to approve the chip rock quote?
So move, Madam Chair.
Second? You have a question? We'll discuss in a minute. Just do a second.
Okay. But are we talking about D, or are we talking about...
We're talking about D. We've already taken care of
Okay,
C.
okay. I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? Call for the question?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on. We've got administrative... Yes.
No, E.
Let's see, that's where I was
E,
confused.
I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Yeah, we added that. We
Yep.
added that in the amended
Okay.
agenda.
Chip seal oil quote. You want to talk about that, Richard?
Yes, this we received 2 bids. We reached out to 4 vendors, and we actually are going to use a new oil this year, our low temperature road oil, because of our environment. And we feel that it would allow us to work more efficiently and effectively. So we're going to try this new oil this year, this low temperature oil, to see if we can change operations to its use. It sets at 40 degrees. It breaks at 40 degrees instead of 60 degrees. And there are times when we're chip sealing our roads, surface temperatures don't get above 50 because of our environment. So we're looking at better oil to end up with a better product at the end, trying for that 15-year life.
What's the difference in cost?
They were the only vendor that were able to deliver a low temp oil. The other competing bid, we met with both these vendors, and we had them come into our engineering department and talk with our engineering techs and myself, and to talk about these oils. And the bottom line, the competitor oil, he said, yeah, it's a low temp oil, but it wasn't rated as a low temp oil. They say it will break at 60, you know, but it wouldn't go less than that. And they were calling it low temp oil, where this other one is an actual low temp oil that will break. So when I say break, is when you put the oil on the road, it's a liquid, and it's brown. When it breaks, it solidifies and turns black, and that's when you put your rock down. And so that process and temperature is very hard to achieve here, because last year the road temps we were hard to get the road temps above 50 degrees while we were working.
So question, what, does it take you longer to do the job when
Yeah, it takes longer, and also it may not be as good of a product.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so
Commissioner Huxley?
Well, the temperature's critical. I mean,
very.
You know, a lot of times you can't repave if the temperature's down below.
You lose the
Certainly
product.
You can't do it. But what did you say the low temperature was, the rating?
40 degrees.
40 degrees.
And
okay.
we've noticed, especially on our river roads close to the coast, it could be an 80-degree day, but we may not get those temperatures at all that day, because the road's so cold from the day before, and the asphalt doesn't warm up. And so, and logistically, it makes it really difficult, because this oil isn't locally available. It's being shipped from Klamath Falls or White City vendors or Portland, and you're paying a huge transport cost for that to come over the hill, and if you don't hit your road temps, you have to pay to send it back. So it's, so I'm looking at this low temperature oil as a future for the road department to avoid those costs.
Well, I'm learning a lot about road asphalting. Commissioner Boyce?
Just at the end, I have one quick, I think, related comment, Madam Chair. Probably wouldn't be perfect timing right now, just when we're done here.
Oh, okay. So do we have a motion to approve the chip rock quote?
I would motion to approve the addition item
Oh, I'm sorry,
5E
chip seal
on
oil
the chip
quote.
seal oil quote for the low temp oil as recommended.
I'll second that, Madam Chair.
Okay, I think we've discussed enough. Call for the question?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
Good information.
Roadmaster
Thank you.
Commission.
Okay,
Quickly,
comment?
Madam Chair, thank you for the follow-through on the road damage due to the Chetco bar fire, you and your staff. I think we might need to refine that a little bit. You and I have talked about that just when we kind of collect and get ready to form our presentation. I'll be working, of course, with Administrator Clark on that. Schroeder, I'm sorry. Anyway, one quick thing. It says PR 297 Chetco bar fire 8/17/18. Just change that to the 17th.
Okay.
Or the 2017, but we'll present, I presume, if we can get it all done, part of the FEMA reimbursement. Got my fingers crossed for $657,000, rounded numbers. Great job.
Thank you.
And I've got my hopes up.
Appreciate
Okay,
that.
thanks. I think we have time for Carolyn to come up. County action, administrative actions, appointments. Carolyn.
Carolyn
Sorry,
Johnson,
Carolyn Johnson. Sorry.
Community Development Director. Good afternoon. I'll catch you quick before lunch. As you're probably all aware, we are going through a bit of a transition with our building division. We've assembled a team to take on the work of that building official position effective July 2nd. The staff report outlines that, and it's a really good group. We've got 3 people who are building officials, who were, 2 of them were former building officials here, and one is a former building official from Josephine County. To round out the team, I've been talking with the city of Brookings, and they are willing, the city manager is interested and willing to make his building official available up to 6 hours a week to do inspections in the south part of the county. I'm bringing this to you because I need your signatures, obviously, but July 2nd is around the corner, and he still has to get this to his city council after you take action if you authorize this agreement. We're also going to have some resources from the state of Oregon. We have an agreement with them to provide services on an as needed basis. So I think we're gonna be okay. So my primary request for you, and that's the subject of this report, is to authorize this agreement with the city of Brookings. We've done this before. We did it about 1.5 years ago, and it worked out very well. It was for a limited time. We'll probably be coming back to you in August, if not beforehand, to announce a new building official, to let you know how things are going. I feel pretty confident in this group. They're all really strong building officials, and they've really shown a commitment to the county in the past, and I don't foresee any problems.
So question, this group that you're hiring is just part-time, all of them?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
that would cut back on costs, I would assume, simply because you don't have all the benefits to pay?
I think if we were looking at this long-term, potentially. Short-term, I'm hoping it will be, it might be a little bit of a wash. We're having to pay one of the inspectors a little more than we would normally.
So this is basically a temporary fix
It's
right
a
now.
transition at
Okay.
this time.
Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you again, Madam Chair. You and I had discussed about the state possibly coming and doing a greater level of service, and I had heard, not from you, I can't remember where, that it was pretty expensive. And I inquired with one of the Coos County Commissioners, just read a 2 sentence here, that the state does our billing codes, but we don't pay anything. So I need clarification on that. It has been that, I think she means that it's been that way since before I became commissioner. It works out great for us. Sometimes people complain because it is administered out of Coos Bay, and they have to go there to get information, but that is the only complaint that I have heard. And then,
Yeah,
so
there's
maybe that
two-
is an option after.
Well, it is, and that's probably something we'll look at if we need to. I think it's always optimal to have local control, and if we were to contract with the state for everything, it would be, frankly, I think it would be a change in the level of service that we could provide, because they have to come so far.
So probably not better? Is that what I'm hearing you?
I don't
Tough call.
I don't want to judge. I don't want to
Okay.
judge the value of their service, but I think we'd really want to dive into that. The model I'm talking about is a simple agreement that we have with them to provide services on an as-needed basis. And we entered into that last year when our last building official left. I contacted them and said, "Would you be available to work with us in this way?" And they agreed to that. So, our using them with just bit-by-bit services is not a full-on commitment to have them take over the program, no. But it's just a different model.
Any other questions? Okay, do we have a motion to approve the county building services agreement with the city of Brookings?
Chair, I'd motion, go ahead. I'd motion to approve this intergovernmental agreement with the city of Brookings as written for a period of 1 year.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Any further discussion? Call for the question?
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. If I could ask that you all sign this today, because I have to get it to
No
Gary
problem.
Millman so he can get it to his board. He has to get his packet ready.
Okay,
So,
no problem.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we will, we're not going to call this meeting to a
Recess.
close. We're going to have a recess until 1:30 when our next public hearing will take place. And we'll meet back at 1:30. So thank you for coming, one and all. We're going to reconvene this meeting, and we're starting with a public hearing on Curry County fee changes. So we'll begin with Curry Transfer and Recycle. That would be Luke Pyle. And before he gets started, does anybody from the public have any public comment regarding these changes? Okay, come on up.
Good afternoon, Luke Pike. It's all right.
sorry.
It's not the first time. I'm Luke Pike with CTR. I'm the site manager there. But before you today to request a rate adjustment for 2018. In the past, the county was based on the Portland CPI. Sue Gold and she twisted my arm quite a bit there for a while, but we agreed to make a change this year and get in line with the other municipalities in the county, with the city of Brookings and Gold Beach and Port Orford, and go with the U.S. CPI average, which the Portland CPI is at 3.9%, and the U.S. city average is a 2.15%. So pretty good savings this year for everyone.
So do I get a gold star?
I give you a gold star.
Okay,
But I
there's
should get
only
one too,
other
though.
thing I'm going to try to get you, but we've already discussed that, so.
So in your packet, we'll show the different rates. The most popular cart is a 32 gallon, and that's a 53-cent per month increase. Is what we're kind of looking at, effective July 1st, 2018. Attached is also the transfer site rates, also raising up to 2.15. The only change on that is we are requesting a change on the yard waste per yard increase up to $2 more, so up to a $5 per yard rate. And that's due because of we are no longer able to burn. We used to be able to burn everything, and now we're going to have to chip some and ship it to Medford to a compost facility, which in turn is really good because it's really going to be a big number to increase the DEQ recycle numbers, which is the county is the goal is a 30% rate, and I think we were at like 26 in the prior year. So doing this should bump us up, and with some of the other recycle maneuvers we made with the carts and everything in Brookings, it may push us up to that goal. We're pretty close. I'm up here for any questions you may have.
I was just going to say, I think it's important that you note how much we have to pay for the recycling material versus what they used to pay us to take it.
Sue and I met about that. If you guys have seen in the paper and watched the news, it's a national problem right now. Not a county problem. It's a national problem. China's affected.
International.
International. They've stopped buying material from other countries, and U.S. was the main one, which is in turn created a whole fiasco on because United States had no infrastructure on how to deal with our own commingle. So, back in the day, 15, 20 years ago, we would actually get paid for that product, and I think the best it ever got maybe was $20 a ton, somewhere around there. And now we're paying this month is $74 a ton that we're paying them, and that's just at the gate in Portland. That's not the cost of shipping it up there and the process of picking it up and bailing it and shipping it up there. So that's just your disposal cost is raised, like a 200% increase from what it used to be.
Does anybody have any other questions of Luke Pike? Okay.
Thank you.
Great job. Thanks for getting us down to the right percentage increase. Do we have a motion to approve the Curry County fee changes, transfer and recycle changes?
Chair, I'll motion to approve the CTR requested changes.
Do I have a second?
Second, Madam Chair.
Any further discussion? Call for the question.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And then last of all, on the public hearings, we have the department fee changes. Council Huddle.
Thanks, Madam Chair. And so before I get started, I was approached by Community Development Director Johnson, and she indicated to me that she had some changes to discuss on, I'll call it Exhibit A2. For my part of the presentation, the Commissioner's Economic Development Schedule A1, we have added at the bottom there, most of the other fees and charges remain the same. We've added a nuisance abatement fees to reflect true costs, including staff time, to impose those on folks. That's on page 154 of your packet. Other than that, from the Commissioner's Office and Economic Development, those stayed the same. Carolyn's start on page 155 or so, and then I think earlier Environmental Health showed that they were going down. That's on page 160. I think there was a discussion from them at a workshop, and Parks has one increase on page 161 for an overnight fee, and then some of theirs have gone down a little bit on page 162. They've increased the group overnight fee, but then their A-frames went down from 150 to 100. The cabin went from 75 to 50, and a two-person cabin went down from 50 to 30, and camp cabins from 18 to 15. So they've reduced theirs. There's further changes in parks fees on page 163. There's been some increases, but otherwise they've mostly stayed the same. There was an increase in a yearly pass from 25 to 35. An RV site went without electric, went from 18 up to 20. The RV site with electric stayed the same, 25 a day. And some of the road department fees, looks like they've gone up, and if I was, well, they've gone both up and down. Those are on page 165. Again, they're pretty hard to read for me, but most of them look like they stayed the same. The road encroachment fees went up slightly, it looks like. And really that's a summary of the fee changes proposed in the packet. And then Director Johnson has some discussion on hers, which are in your packet there on page 155. And then for about 4 pages there.
Okay, before we have Director Johnson, does anybody in the public have comments? Okay, since there are no public comments, Director Johnson, do you want to?
Sure. Carolyn Johnson, Community Development Director. I would direct your attention to page 155. About 2/3 down the page, actually I'm going to hand this out to you. You don't have to try to find it. There's a lot of lines here.
Never mind.
On page 155, in the bolded area where it's yellow, actually on the handout, I'm sorry, that I just gave you, that fee should not be $18.60, it should be $14.49.
So basically, it's not changing.
It's not changing, right?
Okay.
And then if you look on page 157, there's something in red and yellow. And this is new this year. We talked about people building without building permits. That's kind of been an ongoing topic for a long time. And after talking to the Building Codes Division and a number of building officials around the state, I learned that in Oregon, you can't double charge a fee. Like if you catch somebody having built and then you want to charge them double, you can't do that. In some places you can. But you can charge them the base building permit fee and then the actual cost of your investigation of having to go out there and check everything out and work on it that way. And that's the way I had framed it, was a $500 fee. I changed that. It should be a $500 deposit and then the actual cost of the investigation in excess of the $500 would go to that. Odds are pretty good that it's going to be more than $500. These are pretty extensive. When I was talking to some of the building officials in other counties, they said, you know, when you find a situation like this, you oftentimes have to have people open up walls 2 or 3 places, go back, crawl under the place, you know, go into the roof, go into any outbuildings. So it was kind of an interesting take on how they do it. But
So question, do you have any idea how many places we're looking at?
You know, I don't, and it's a conversation I want to have with Jim Cullen, because his staff is bird dog, that kind of thing. They go out looking for them.
Right.
We don't have the staff to do that in our department. So
you're just going to work hand in hand
yeah,
with him?
he and I have talked a little bit.
That's
So, but this is something new, and I think if we didn't have this on the books, I'd have to come back to you and suggest it later.
I got you. Commissioner Huxley?
This would be, if you're going to be having a discussion with Assessor Colin anyway, because this has sort of, it's almost like it's been a wives' tale, and all of a sudden the truth has come out, and you can't do what we kept hearing, you know, that we could do, was to double the fees. But there had also been discussions and questions, not of you, but more of Assessor Colin. How many years back could you go? And I think again, there's not been anything definitive, and it would be good if you would, or between you and Administrator Schroeder, find out, let's not be, what we think or what somebody told us, let's be very definitive so we have that authority also to go hand in hand with this.
We're talking specifically about...
how many years back can you go in property taxes, correct? Correct.
I thought that was 6 years, that's what he...
Again, it would be good to see the authority, because here we've thought one thing and it's clearly not what we thought.
I'll reach out to the state.
Okay.
Commissioner Boyce?
The building official do the investigation?
Yeah, under the building code, the building official does the investigation for this kind of thing. If we get
I
a
assume
complaint.
that, but is this, this is a new fee?
It would be new, yeah.
Yeah. And did I hear you say or reference somewhat customary around the state? Is that what you're hearing?
This is not uncommon to do this, but I think everybody's got this problem.
It's kind of hypothetical, but I just wonder if it might force more people underground. I mean, I don't have an answer for that, or even a guess, but I wonder if you have thought of that, and if it would be
I have, actually,
Okay.
and it's a conversation I haven't had with your administrator yet, but I'm going to go ahead, if that's all right. A lot of where I come from, we would have amnesty programs. We had them really more to deal with illegal secondary dwelling units, little granny units people would build illegally. And once we adopted secondary dwelling unit regulations, we created an amnesty program, and we advertised the heck out of it. We gave people, I think it was a year, to come in, get your building permits. We won't go after you, but after that, if we found out you had one, we'd go out and we would charge you the planning fee and then double the building fee. And everybody knew it. But I mean, it was a little different environment, but it's a kind of a model. So I want to talk with the administrator about that, and I think we could come up with something. We'll probably want to entertain that same thing when we talk about accessory dwelling units too, because a lot of these, I hear through the grapevine that have been built illegally are little small units that people tuck in the back so you can't see them. So anyway.
Thank you.
Sure.
If I may, on the 500, maybe that's also standard around the state, but I'm just a little nervous of it's kind of like other fees that sometimes people delay in paying, and then we have to catch up. That costs us more to recover. Mm-hmm. And so I mean, is that an arbitrary figure in your mind that maybe you could do half of that? I mean, I'm just offering that as a possible consideration and lack of disincentive.
We could, but since it's a deposit, if we took less time, let's just say hypothetically the building official bills out at $50 an hour, and that would be 10 hours of work. Okay. If it only took 5 hours and it was considered a deposit, we need to work out the paperwork and the mechanism that somebody could ask for the money back. But deposit systems are rough. I mean, they're...
We might just want to consider capping it, because you mentioned that, it might be more, or likely could be more. So that's just I think that's a reasonable concern, not a huge concern that I have, but yeah, we might want to think about capping that.
Well, the issue is, the way we read this is it says it's actual cost. It's a $500 deposit. It's like an escrow. We would work against that. So let's say it ends up being more. If it ends up being $600, we'd also send them a bill for $100 if it's $500. So it's an actual cost. If it's less, they'll get the money back. But we don't want to take our $50 an hour, BO and lose money doing this. That's not the intent.
But it's still an additional fee, and it's at a time when we are trying to get additional property developed, more housing. We're trying to get...
these are people who did something and tried to hide it from us and didn't.
I thought this was new construction and investigation first.
No. This is for people who basically, when the assessor would go out, find out that there's a non-conforming...
I'm glad I stand corrected.
That there's a non-conforming issue. There's an accessory building, they added on a garage or something like that, but they never got a permit for 5 years. We're going to say, okay, does it meet building standards? And we're going to investigate it from not only from a building official standpoint and structural ability, but also from the back taxes to do that. And this would help on the building inspection to make sure that that property meets current building codes. correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that's absolutely right. And I think, I mean, my thought is that if you don't have a building permit, I don't think you're safe. I just don't. I don't care how well you think you built it. Without that building permit to assure, you know, that you're safe, it's just not something that I'd want to endorse. So getting that
You
building
think we might
permit's
be able to add an amnesty program possibly at some point in addition to what we're talking about?
I think
Well, we
would like to talk about it,
so,
yeah.
So part of this issue is a twofold issue. So one, we're looking for this grant from the assessors to be able to go out and do this re-inspection service for taxes from 18 years now, I think you have, down to
I thought it was 20.
Yeah, 20, whatever it is. So if that happens, there'll be a lot more people coming into the system that have done this, you know. So I think that would be a solution that would be self-remedying. If that doesn't happen, then maybe we would want to look at it. Carol and I will research this and give a write-up on what we think it would be beneficial to do an amnesty or not.
Good. Thanks.
Sure.
Anybody have any more questions? So I'm looking for a motion to approve the department fee changes.
And with
that's all departments.
With the revised exhibit.
With the revised exhibit that the planning department put in.
Carol, motion to approve the proposed planning fees with the $1 revision and the addition of a building investigation fee.
Do I have a second?
Second, Madam Chair.
Any further discussion? Call for the question?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I think we finished all of the public hearings. Now let's go back to the supplemental budget fund 1.11, and I believe that Council Huddle was going to look into the legalities of all of this.
Well, I did take a look at it. I think this is more than just a one-person, you know, analysis, but I looked at it independently. Administrator Schroeder looked at it. We actually tried to get on the phone with Danette Benjamin at the DOR, left her a message. We did try to contact Louise, but she was independently doing her own work. So what I was looking at was, and the 10% rule, you know, we know the rule, it's in the statutes. And I just wasn't sure from the materials in the packet whether there was an excess of a 10% of a fund, the way I understand funds being used. That looks like it might be, and then the question comes down to, if so, and we do need to do a budget committee revision, then we would have to go through a notice, newspaper notice, and publish that. And there's the Department of Revenue has some suggested publication requests. But I would like to hear from Louise Kallstrom on her analysis of the 10% of the fund change and whatnot, and
Okay.
what she thinks.
Louise Kallstrom, County Accountant. I was talking to our auditing firm just before this meeting, and what my understanding of a supplemental budget is, and this is what's new in this edition. This is from the local budget law manual, and under supplemental budget it says public hearing required with published notice and summary of funds that change more than 10%. So it has always been my understanding that you're looking at a fund and not an appropriation line. So in talking to my auditor, I talked to Margaret at Polly Rogers, and she says, however, ORS 294, and I'm not sure if it's 396, does say appropriation level. So I think we are looking at a 10% change in an appropriation level. The second thing we talked about was the noticing of the meeting. So you would have to do a notice of the change, and you have five days before the meeting. She's a little concerned with having the only publication date we have available as being on Saturday and the meeting being on Wednesday. It's the 5th day, but it's not 5 days. She would be more comfortable if we did this meeting on Thursday. I didn't think that was possible, and I asked her what the consequences of having this hearing and publishing it on Saturday and having the hearing on Wednesday. And she said the comment would be a best practices comment, which is a risk factor type comment, and it is not usually put into the audit comments in your audit.
So does she know the newspaper comes out early in the morning?
Yeah.
And our
I think she
meeting
would be
isn't
more
till 10.
comfortable if we had an evening meeting and had 5 full days. But since we have daytime meetings, she's pretty sure that since it's a daytime meeting, that it would have to be giving the public 5 days worth of what the law allows, and that would include Wednesday.
Okay.
So I think that what I think that we should do is to go ahead and do this publication for Saturday, have the meeting on Wednesday, and we will probably have a best practices finding from our auditors for the publication of notice on this meeting.
Louise, do we have to convene the budget committee for this?
I believe that you can do it with the board. I don't think you have to convene the budget committee, as long as it's published, notice of the change.
We do have it would be nice to get the budget committee to come in just to adopt the minutes
Yes.
from last year, because otherwise you're going to be adopting minutes the spring of 19 for the meetings from 17.
For you're going to adopt meeting minutes for 2 years next year if we don't, and so I think that usually you adopt the minutes of a budget committee, the first budget committee meeting that you have the following year. So you wouldn't have this current year's budget committee meeting minutes being approved this year. But you should have last year's approved this year.
So would the board be amenable towards having a budget committee meeting at 10 o'clock on Wednesday from 10 to 10:15 to adopt the minutes, if the budget committee members were available?
27th, and could they do that by phone?
Yes.
Okay. We are talking 27th, though. Okay.
Yes.
We got
We have 2 of the.
you guys right here. I don't think we can convene the meeting right now without proper
No, we
notice.
have to have
no,
notice
no,
for a
no.
budget committee
No.
meeting.
This might be a quorum of the budget meeting, though, if I have a...
There's no notice. There's no notice.
No notice.
There's no public notice.
Commissioner Boyce?
Oh, I think Tom Brand is out of town for the summer now. I'm pretty
Well,
sure.
I believe that the quorum would be 4 members of the budget committee, and even if one of them wasn't here and does not wish to vote for that reason, you would still have a quorum as long as you have at least four of you voting for it.
He said, what's it
You
worth?
always come
Double your usual rate of pay.
Bring donuts or something, I mean...
We'll double your usual rate of pay. There you go.
She's 100% increase. You can't beat that. Okay, so is that what everybody wants to do? I don't think do we need a motion to that effect, do you think?
I don't think so. I think we just need to...
Have an agreement?
We just need to say, yeah, we're going to be available, and JJ would put that forth.
Okay. Commissioner
I
Huxley?
think Commissioner Boyce had his hand up.
Commissioner
Just,
Boyce?
I thought I heard you mention Saturday. Did you?
No, the paper.
That'd be a publication day.
Paper.
Excuse me.
Paper,
Okay.
yeah.
Just
Paper
double
comes on
check it.
Saturday.
Commissioner Huxley?
So we're talking two subjects here, is that correct?
There's two subjects. One is the minutes, and one is the supplemental budget.
Okay, so
Both can be done by the budget committee, so if you'd rather have the supplemental budget advertised as a budget committee meeting to approve it, rather than have the supplemental budget just go to the board, we can do that also. It can go, that one can be done either way.
well, what you're going to have, there could be one meeting with two subjects.
Yes.
And we're talking the subjects are Wednesday the 27th.
Yes.
Is that correct?
We would also bring back the road roller.
So you're going to have a special meeting
Yep.
on the 27th.
Oh, the 27th will be more than that.
Yeah.
Well,
The
but
board meeting will be more than that. I'm just saying, if we have the budget committee come back on the 27th, we could have both of these subjects, one being the minutes, the other one being the supplemental budget with the budget committee. And then we would also have to have a board meeting next week because I have a lot of other supplemental budgets that have to be done by June 30th.
okay, so
And I
it's
think that I might also have, I have to talk to them, but I might also have a Skype interview with a presentation of last year's audit.
so again, to clarify still, so there'll be a special meeting, call it, put whatever under the special, it's not going to be a workshop, it's going to be other
Yes.
than a
Yeah.
than a workshop, okay. And you're saying that the budget committee must approve the minutes, or a quorum, which is 4 of the budget committee must approve the minutes from whatever budget meeting year.
Yeah.
That the budget committee quorum cannot approve a supplemental budget. I do not believe the Board of Commissioners as a governing body has the authority to approve that even as a separate
Let me find out
entity.
that for sure, but
Or-
I
So it
believe...
shouldn't.
Well, 294-471 uses the phrase governmental body on supplemental budgets, so it indicates governmental body. I think what Louise Colstrom is saying is at least as long as the budget committee is here, they could consider this supplemental budget. I mean, there's no prohibition, even though 294-471 uses the phrase governmental body can approve a supplemental budget, and it doesn't
Okay.
talk about the budget committee. I don't think there's any prohibition against the budget committee looking at it.
Not looking at
Yeah.
it, no. Okay.
But could I, while we're on that topic, and I know this is a topic that I did a little work on, this is essentially to amend the Board of Commissioners budget to allow for travel, right? For additional travel to allow for essentially like an accounts receivable or something like that.
Yes.
And it's in a particular amount, and then the part about that is, from what I understand, that amount is not even, a hard number as well.
I don't know what that amount is because I am going by what I know at, kind of at the moment. Nothing else has been turned in. So I don't know if, we can pay this year's bills for, through July, really, if they get turned in and accounts payable them. Because we operate on the accrual method. But once I close the books, we will no longer allow you to go back to a prior year to be reimbursed.
Right, so this goes to mileage reporting of the amounts and whatnot.
I've got a couple of things to do. One is I am in the process of getting all the costs for the Chetco fire, moving those to a grant. That'll be next week, where I'm going to try to do a supplemental budget to establish the Chetco Fire FEMA grant. And when I move those costs, I may be moving some of that cost out of Commissioner's office, as well as the Sheriff's Department, Emergency Services, and Road Department, the ones that have those costs in their budgets right now. They need to be moved to where I'm going to actually receive the reimbursement for those. And so I don't know that amount yet. And then if there's requests or reimbursement requests come in for accounts payable, then those will be added to I don't know what's on people's credit cards. I don't know what people have as receipts to turn in, so I don't know where we are as of the end of June. So,
Commissioner Huxley?
Well, to County Council's question on the mileage, okay, and to the unknowns, given the circumstances, the April 2018 revenue and expense report shows the material and services is over budget. Well, its budgeted amount is $8,524. Year-to-date actual is $11,652 and change, or almost 140%. But that said, and now to County Council's concern, mine also, that's as of April. We still have May and June. The May odometer report that goes to the Commissioner's office and is copied to, in this case it was copied to Administrator Schroeder, Council Huddle, and myself at my request from on a monthly basis from either Diane Carpenter, in this case from John Jesuit, says there have been 5 vehicles assigned for accounting purposes, if you will, to the Commissioner's office. There's now a 6th one for a summer usage in the Surveyor's office. But of the 5, 3 came in for the month of May as unknown mileage. Unknown as keys are not in the BOC office. Unknown as keys are not in the BOC office, and then the last one, just plain unknown. So we have
this
2 months.
This is what I have is, as of May 31st, the amount year-to-date actual is $11,832. I also did a report. I printed out a expenditure report on June 15th, and that number had not changed as of that date. So anything that was paid between June 1st and June 15th, there was nothing posted to the Commissioner's office. So I think the total amount, the negative balance as of May 31st and June 15th was $3,300, and I'm trying to put $400 or $4,000 in there, so that's allowing for another $700 of unknowns if to cover that.
Commissioner Huxley?
But back to you, you're picking up payables or general ledger activity, correct?
I'm picking up whatever has been paid with a check or a journal entry.
If the mileage has not been turned in.
If it has not turned in, that's why I have allowed in between the overage of that account of $3,300, I'm asking to put in $4,000. That is allowing for a $700 of unknowns still to be found.
In March, the mileage was also not submitted. Okay. So, but in April, mileage was submitted, and there was, I'm rounding off, but it was very close to $2,000 against the vehicle use just in April, which also included March. So to me, it's a really wild unknown. And if given any of that history, which it may or may not be, we don't know until we can see the odometers.
Yeah.
But if it were the same, you'd have $6,000 instead of $4,000.
And that is something that I can certainly consider for next week, is to change this number to $6,000. I mean, it's a number you want to cover everything, but if you spend under that, that's fine. You just don't want to go over it. So if you want me to change this number from $4,000 in the supplemental budget to $6,000 to allow for bigger unknowns than we're talking about right now because of not seeing mileage on a vehicle, I can certainly do that.
I would err that way, given what we know.
Yeah, we'll dig down into the cars and we'll make sure that everything's reported. as of, let's say, Monday, so we have a fairly good idea. So the fudge factor is...
Well, I actually have to have this in by Friday
Yeah, okay.
in order to be in the packet correctly. So we'll figure out the numbers as close as we can determine by Friday. I will be generous with that number, but that doesn't mean that's going to be the number that we what I'll have to do is, if I put $4,000 there, I'd have to put $4,000 in the reimbursement. If I put $6,000, I'll put $6,000 in the reimbursement. That doesn't mean somebody owes $6,000. That just means it's the budget
It's
to
projected,
cover.
proposed.
Yeah,
It's budgeted.
yeah. So it can be less. Certainly can be less.
Just not more.
I'd rather not explain to the auditors why it's more.
Okay, so it sounds like we're going to defer this until next Wednesday's meeting,
Yes,
correct?
and at that same time, I'll have the payroll one. We'll just do it all as one, like it is here. So I'll just take the whole thing out. I'll do the whole thing again, rather than approve part of a supplemental budget. I'll just do all of it at once.
Commissioner Huxley?
So are we going to have basically two supplemental budgets?
No, it's one supplemental budget. It has two exhibits.
Well,
Okay, and two exhibits. Okay.
Yeah, one for the personnel and the other for...
It looked just like this, only it'll have different numbers down in the assigned vehicle and up in the miscellaneous reimbursement. It'll just have different numbers. It'll be the exact same as the one that's in the packet.
but you did mention you're going to be on the 27th bringing more than just this supplemental budget resolution is coming back, but more than this will be presented on the, you will have other supplemental budgets.
I will have, I am trying to, I've been going through our, the May 31st, and trying to see where I expect all of the funds and appropriation levels to end up by the end of the year, and looking for what I need to do as supplemental budgets to clean up for the end of the year.
Okay. Did you have a comment, Commissioner Boyce?
I can get you that. There's only one car we're talking about here that's been moved during that time, and it's the oldest of the three.
Well,
The other, so we can get that for you.
There's two more that don't have. Yeah, I'm going to dig into it.
Fair enough. And then, but I heard three different figures, so I heard excuse me, in fairness to you, I mean, I was concentrating, but I heard 4,000 over and 8, and then I also heard 11.
Now, the total amount that's been spent so far this year is 11,000
On commissioner's travel.
on commissioners' materials and services.
Excuse me, okay, thank you.
All materials and services. With an $8,000 budget, that means it's over appropriation level by $3,300.
Okay.
In order to cover more expenses into the materials and services. And that includes other things that go in there besides travel, because you have a copy machine, you have other things that are, so I put in to cover through June 30th an estimate of having $4,000 more needed to cover everything. And we have so many unknowns right now that we're talking about having $6,000 to cover everything.
Thank you.
Commissioner Huxley?
I had also, and it was, clearly it would have been in a public meeting, heard, and I think I heard it from county council. I'm pretty sure it was from county council. It had to do with older expenses, and I thought there was something that was $500 or that was floating around that had been found from AOC trip or some such thing.
There was
Maybe
there was a
I think it was a $475 registration for a November annual conference at AOC, and because the budget was already maxed out, I did not sign the claim for that, but I don't know whatever became of that.
I do believe that we do still need to pay that. It did happen, and we do owe them the money for the registration. They had a new person that didn't do the billings, and so we never got an invoice for it. So when they discovered their error, they sent out the invoices, and I don't think we were the only county affected by this. So we do need to pay that. So that's one of the kind of unknowns that to cover in this budget.
Commissioner Boyce?
Just the date on that? There's only one convention that I'm aware of, and that's in November. Is that?
That's the one.
That's the
Okay,
one.
thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm surprised at that. I mean, I think you mentioned it, or missed calls from you did. I'm not sure what that fee is for.
It's for registration for a conference.
Okay.
Conference registration fee.
Okay, so we'll defer this till Wednesday.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Now, back to the agenda. I think we finished the first page.
Hold on, we have a question from John
Yes.
Jesuit.
Just to make sure, Wednesday, 10 a.m., June 27th, special meeting.
Special meeting, but
Budget
there's going to be a
committee?
budget meeting and then a special meeting thereafter, I
And
would
15
think.
or immediately thereafter is Board of Commissioners. So 10 a.m. JJ budget, 10 a.m. budget, 10:15 or immediately thereafter Board of Commissioners.
Commissioner Huxley?
Does the budget committee meeting have to be published in the paper? Okay,
Yeah, it's a public.
okay.
Yep. Okay, we have now finished the first page of the agenda. So, no, we haven't. We've got old business and pending actions. So, first is the OHA 2017-19 IGA Financing of Public Health Services Amendment 154-108. Ben Cannon. You're on. Oh, one comment.
A comment, and it's a comment, a general comment that I've made in the past, but when these, and it's a comment I'll direct to Administrator Schroeder, just for future meetings. And give a little slack at the same time, because we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or so different public hearings to try and close out year-end stuff. But what we had seen in past meetings is that we would have things all over the place on the agenda, and we would have some people sit patiently and not say what they would say if I was sitting there and I was having to pay for it. This is crazy, let's shuffle this around so we can get people in and out of the meeting quickly, because you've been sitting here for hours and hours and hours. Carolyn Johnson was another one. But I think all the commissioners, everybody has to be aware of that and speak up to improve and act like we were out there. I wouldn't be a happy camper. Thank you.
Mr. Boyce?
Madam Chair, I mentioned that, and I felt, maybe I misinterpreted, but I felt like when I mentioned Roadmaster Christensen and Community Director Johnson, that you got snappy with me. Did I misunderstand that?
Yeah, you did. 'Cause
Okay.
they were coming up on the public hearings right away.
That was your response, and okay, so I was aware, and I think that's a very good point, Commissioner Huxley, but I'm glad to know that I misinterpreted. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm usually not snappy.
Well, not sometimes.
How do you
We take a
define-
vote
how do you
on a
define
motion and a
usually?
vote? Pardon me?
Are you going to define usually?
No, snappy. We're going to define snappy.
Let's get down to business here. Ben Cannon, you're up.
Ben Cannon, Public Health Administrator. This amendment is the current, it's an amendment to the current IGA with Oregon Health Authority for the financing of public health. And it does not change the contract terms or any financing. It just merely adds pieces about modernization, public health modernization, to include that as part of our duties and responsibilities to explore public health modernization and how we can better meet the needs of our residents in Curry County.
Does anybody have any questions? I think we've taken up too much of your time today. So let's get a motion to approve this IGA.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Okay.
I'll second for discussion.
Okay.
And I think County Council, when we talked about review of things, because this is 100+ pages on this thing.
It is a long one.
That you had, because I didn't read it.
So if
I wouldn't
I
have
could,
understood
I'll
it if
try
I
to
did.
I'll try to summarize my reading of it. And essentially, this is more or less a restatement of the existing agreement, and as Ben Cannon mentioned in the earlier item, we used to have a 3-party agreement, now it's a 2-party agreement. And the majority, the bulk of this agreement is the attachments that talk about the services that Curry Community Health is delivering under contract. This acknowledges our contract. The state is saying, we agree with you, Curry County as a local public health authority, that you can use Curry Community Health to deliver these services. And then it goes through, you know, the women and children, the WIC program, the all the other, you know, treatment programs. And by way of reference, you've seen, excuse me, I apologize, you've seen a report, at least you've seen a summary when Ken Duque came and gave the report, where they actually get a report card from the state on all the services they provide and the ratings that they get, which are usually high and good ratings. But essentially, this describes the payments they're going to, or the programs they're going to deliver on behalf of our, fulfilling our obligations. There are pages and pages of them, but primarily that's what it is. You know, I'm looking at page 234, the perinatal hepatitis B prevention, screening, and documentation part of their services. So these are the public health services that they provide for us. And then there's a few budget documents that appear. I'm looking at page 254 that talk about what the budget will be for these services there. So really, that's the long and the short of it. It does have some reporting requirements on our part to the state, and I shared some of those with Louise Kallstrom. But really, again, it's mainly a restatement of an existing agreement, going from the 3-party to the 2-party, but acknowledging CCH will do this for us and outlining the programs that they'll be providing. So, and it is a lot of reading, but it's repeated on a lot of the things that we already do. So I don't know that there's usually, again, what can be done, and I say usually, how do you define that, but what can be done on documents like this is to have a work session on them so that the board, that the staff can go through them more than just the very summary fashion that I have to explain to you and get the board comfortable with the action they're going to be taking. But I've looked at it, and it had a lot of familiar rings to it. And Ben, if I kind of need a little help on my explanation, feel free. And again, this has a single signature line for the county, so you may have to repeat that type of a motion as far as signature authority to the chair. This is a state, apparently there are protocols on writing up agreements. But it is, again, it's an amended and restated agreement, and that's the kind of the key there.
Did you have any further comments?
No, I would just add, and he's exactly right, this is a restatement of the current agreement. It adds, like I said, that modernization piece. That's a kind of a new initiative in public health across the state, and so it restates all of the things that we are doing and includes modernization.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to approve this. I think it's time to call for the question.
Sure.
You want more discussion?
Well, but I think Council Huddle addressed that there's only one signature line, so is it going to be, again, with signature authority to the chair?
Maybe we'll do that as a separate motion.
Okay.
Okay, so just to approve the IGA first. Call for the question.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Second motion, we'll talk about the signature authority. Do we have a motion relative to the signature authority?
I would chair a motion that we give signature authority to the IGA that we just passed to the chair.
Do we have a second? I'll second that. Any discussion? Call for the question.
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Okay. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
You've been very
Job, Ben.
Ben, send the invoice to the chair, because she has signature authority for your time. Thank you.
As long as it doesn't have to come out of my checkbook, I'm okay with that. Okay, old business, B, travel use policy discussion. Council Huddle.
Thanks, Madam Chair. And so I think separately I've shared with the board and the county administrator a memo, and the memo is supplemented by 3 cases. A brief summary of, the memo is, the question was, we've talked about it. It was the subject of our budget resolution, but again, Commissioner Boyce, the board had a budget for travel. The board has a travel policy. Both those items currently, the indications are that Commissioner Boyce isn't abiding by those, and it's, causing the one thing with the budget adjustment. The idea of the budget adjustment is we would recognize an account receivable, and the question was, are these kind of ideas enforceable against a elected commissioner? And so what I did is I researched it, and I found 3 cases, 2 of them from 1927 and 1 from 1979, and they were cases against, 2 of them were against individual commissioners, and the court required the commissioners to reimburse the county for travel monies that they'd received. And then a 3rd case was a citizen suit against a board of commissioners for allowing travel that was alleged as being unlawful. And among the allegations was that the unlawful expenses were to occur between residences and the workplace, as well as personal use, including attending political meetings held for the purpose of their own re-election and other non-official business. So the court determined those allegations were sufficient to state a claim for wrongful spending. Now, those allegations aren't proof of it. The court continued to say it established a case for a trial, which means putting on the proof to see whether or not those are what the uses were for and those kind of things. There's statutory authority under 30.310 and 30.315 that authorizes the county to sue to enforce its laws and recover and prevent damage to county property. And then personally, because collectively you are my clients, but I think individually there's an expectation of attorney-client relationship, and so I don't believe I can act as a person going against one of my own clients, as a lawyer going against one of my own clients, and so I've explained I have a conflict. So I believe for all the board that our policies are enforceable, and in this case would be, and I would just hope that our policies were complied with, and then we could move on. I know Commissioner Boyce says that's a hardship, but ultimately it's going to be up to the board to decide what the next steps they would be. I don't see a resolution short of going to circuit court, and that would involve a lawyer. And the one case I saw, there was a request for attorney's fees for the people who were taking the case against the county and the commissioner for the wrongful spending, and the court declined to award attorney's fees to them as a successful party. That may be on a case-by-case basis, but if the board did pursue this with an outside counsel, that may be an expense they wouldn't recover in an award if they were successful. So there's a lot of factors to consider, but my analysis is, our actions are enforceable. The board's actions and policies are enforceable. It's just there's a expense question and then a legal question to consider there. And I'll just give a copy of this memorandum to the John Jesuit for the record there. And if there's any questions, I'll answer your questions.
Yeah, any comments? Or?
Well, personally, I think if we have a policy, we should be willing to adhere to it. It was put forth and passed by the Board of Commissioners, and so I think we should enforce it. Otherwise, it's kind of like we all have a law, but some of us don't have to comply with that law, and we should all be equal, but it appears that some are more equal than others. So, Commissioner Huxley?
I certainly would mirror those comments. I think it's been an embarrassment to the county. It's on high definition television for anybody that wants to watch. It's simply an embarrassment. If it needs to be enforced. If Commissioner Boyce will abide immediately by the requirements of the policy, including returning the keys and following even the sign out of the keys, which was an informal policy by the prior county administrator, a procedure, then I say we do that and we move forward. If not, then I say, at least as one board member, we immediately pursue finding outside counsel to begin filing a legal action against Commissioner Boyce.
And I would have to agree with that. I hate to go that far. I wish that it would happen voluntarily. So
we're looking here, if I may, Madam Chair. I had to go back 90 years to defeat me on this. Underline some things here. Unlawful travel expenses were alleged to have occurred for travel between the residences of county employees and the workplace, and for use of county-owned vehicles for personal use. Attending political meetings held for the purpose of their own re-election and other non-official business. Authorize the county to sue to enforce its laws and recover and prevent damage to county property. I think that probably rubs me the wrong way the most. It's 21 pages. Here's where we ask you to spend your time, hours. The county is in a crisis. As far as FEMA goes, I think I might be able to justify in that whole project and help you maybe get 1,000 return for the Checo Bar fire, which would help. I'm going to stand firm in that. Although if I understand Commissioner Huxley right, that is the first time I've heard someone say, can we work on this? Nobody's offered to do that. I have, but it's gone without any kind of response. So I would have a question for you, Commissioner Golden. This is an honest question. Serving on the AOC Board of Directors, we have some Pell payments coming in that are going to be rather significant in comparison to last year. I'm not at liberty to say that amount yet, but it's a substantial figure. It's only going to be for 1 year. Of course, I know we've heard that before, but I'm anxious to give you some news when it's appropriate. The association, according to the county board as well, setting up Death Task Force. Summer smoke and public land work, critical work that I've been doing nonstop. Forest fire and dangers coming up, endangered species, Salem legislative issues, endangered species. This marmalette is, that is, we dodged a bullet, but I think it's going to be a short-term deal. I can give you some information on that. Do you want to speak?
No, I'm just to be recognized after you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Salem legislative issues, cap and trade. How that's going to affect rural counties. Which ones would you want me to give up? Because you're not willing to travel. You're not willing to travel. And I've taken that lead. I haven't complained. I've looked for an attaboy, just one, and that's not happened. You know that other than going out of my way once in a while to stay with friends or family to avoid motel costs, and by the way, I think I've charged 5 or 6 tanks of gas in the last 6 weeks. And that's been it on a little car. But I know you need that information. I know it's important to make your job easier on the budget, so I don't mean to be indifferent to that. I look at the responsibility of that and the promise I made to the people, and I'm going to keep that promise. I don't think I have any choice. The county's in trouble, and again, this whole thing could have been resolved if we'd have sat down and worked together. It's not unlike the road department unionizing. Boy, we really showed them. We smacked them, and then got a high-powered labor attorney to deal with them instead of just going to the table and saying, How can we help? You know, the county's pretty poor right now, but we'll show you simple appreciation. We'll work with you, you know. But I think that window's probably gone. Maybe not. I hope not. If I'd have known, I'd have been aggressive to try and I went down. I went down last Monday and met with the road crew, and that's a great bunch of people. And yet, if they unionize and if we go into tough negotiations, the only one's going to win is the union. Everybody else is going to lose financially. Maybe we can have an honest dialogue here and discussion, but I want to give just one early example. Frankly, Mr. Huxley, I think that you should recuse yourself from even voting at anything that has to deal with me directly. You wrote a letter for my opponent prior to the general election. Well, how can you be balanced and non-biased? Maybe we all need professional bias therapy. But no, you shouldn't. I wouldn't. Yeah, I know. You look up like you're counting butterflies or something. I apologize, but that's what it's been like with you for I'll just give you one example. The third day I was on the job, we had a lip-sync meeting. We're standing in front of JJ's office.
I think we're kind of getting
No,
off
you're not
the
going to
subject
silence
here.
me, ma'am. Please, please. I'm standing at that doorway, and I walk in. We have a lip-sync meeting at noon. I don't think John Jesuit was there, but there was another county department head that I barely knew was there. I won't give his name. And I said, Commissioner Huxley, are you going to lip-sync meeting? Sir, you stomped your foot, you rolled your eyes and said, we both can't. You yelled at me, said we both can't be there. That was my third day on the job trying to build a bridge with you, and it's been downhill ever since. You have told me I'm clueless. You've twice said for me to grow up. You've twice publicly called me a jerk in public meetings. You've told me to be quiet. And I think you can go back and look at all the videos and verify that I have not called you any names. I've said you're intimidating, and I've been very concerned with the damage that's been done to this county. So, the travel, I have a question on the floor to you, Madam Chair. Which would you want me to give up? Which is not important? And don't tell her what to do. For goodness sakes, build something of value here. Some kind of team concept that we can get some work done.
Point of order.
Yeah.
Chair Gold.
Yes.
There are
I got more,
quorum
but
rules. You have been
I'll stop down
stepped
now.
on. I'm calling a point of order to stop this embarrassing diatribe that's going on.
That's how you deal with people,
required,
sir.
nor am I, to
You
answer
silence them.
any
Here's the
commissioner's
gavel. You
issue.
did it to me 5 times in 1 year.
Okay, I think we've had enough. I think Commissioner Huxley gave a suggestion to take care of this matter right now.
Can
and
I?
That would be to turn the keys in. Are you willing or unwilling to do that?
I want more specifics than that. If we can sit down and resolve this, I have a lot of money out personally myself that I think needs to be put on the table. Why can't we talk? Why can't we just sit down at a round table discussion and say, give and take, what's it going to do to do the responsible thing to get this behind us? And what will it mean for the last 2 weeks of the fiscal year for me to travel if necessary? And what does it mean for next year? I don't think we're going to have any more fires, but I sure as heck can't promise that. And I will be figuring out a way to deal with that should unfortunately it happen again. So how about more specifics?
So Commissioner Huxley, you gave some specifics
Those
just
are
a
the
minute ago.
specifics that are acceptable
Okay, so can you repeat those so we can get those?
for Commissioner Boyce to immediately return the keys to multiple vehicles, however many vehicle keys he has, and to follow the existing policy, the elected officials' travel policy that's been enforced since August 2nd of 2017. It was revised with minor revisions in, I believe, November of 2017. And to also follow the procedures for signing out vehicles that have been in place for months.
So in other words, turn in the keys, use the sign-out policy, follow the travel policy. Is that possible for you to do that? Commissioner Boyce?
It doesn't answer my question if there's some portion of the travel, because I'll be over budget for the last 2 weeks, and I need clarification on the next fiscal year, if I'm going to be governed, if I'm going to be regulated, if I'm going to be told where I can and cannot travel, Madam Chair. So help me understand.
Quite frankly, I don't think it's up to us to prioritize for you. You need to do the prioritization.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I see that as a positive, and I'd like to continue for the next 3 years with you to build that trust and know that when I'm traveling, it is valid, it is important, and it is as efficient as I can possibly be. And I would encourage you to also consider taking some of that responsibility. I think you'd be great at it.
Actually, I have, but I haven't charged the county.
Where have you gone?
Coos Bay,
okay,
numerous times. So.
Well, there's a lot more than Coos Bay.
Edford. Commissioner Boyce, or Huxley, sorry.
Oh my.
Hey, what can I say?
For shame. To Commissioner Boyce's comment, you know, what do I do for the next 2 weeks? You drive your own vehicle and pay for your own gas, and you get past the end of this fiscal year, and then you start paying back the thousands of dollars that you owe for your defiance of the existing policies that have been in place. To your comment earlier, you've bought 5 to 6 tanks of gas over the past 5 or 6 weeks. Well, all of a sudden I see mileage kicking up. So it will be, to Accountant Kallstrom, there's going to be some serious mileage in those odometer readings.
Yeah, it's about 2,000 miles, sir.
To your going on about the letter, it's, you know, to the editor or something that I wrote back in, I don't know, 2016 or something. You'd have a uncanny memory for certain things, but then you typically refer to these attacks, and I've tagged you on this video and that video. Provide a list of the video dates and times, and let's see just what are in your unfounded allegations. But back to the
unfounded
point, those are, I'm sorry?
Unfounded.
What did I say? Okay, I thought I said that.
Nobody has written.
Okay. Anyway, turn the keys in, follow the policy, or we need to proceed immediately with retaining outside legal counsel. And I know the last one, if I may, and then I think I'm done.
Okay.
Here, there was a comment. Commissioner Boyce said something about we had to go back 90 years to find something. Yeah, that's how embarrassing this situation is. It happens every 50 or so years where there's got to be one commissioner that stands out amongst all the hundreds or thousands over those decades that would have been serving the people, and there's always one. And apparently one comes around every 50 or so years. Thank you,
Madam Chair, if I may. So also every 50 years you have somebody that works to the detriment of the county, I believe, as you have done, sir. You've been the most costly commissioner in the history of this county. And if you just take the 90 people that we've lost, and I referenced that during the Budget Committee meeting, if you're responsible for just half of those, the retraining of those people, each one, the 50, just say half of them, would be about $10,000. There's $500,000 right there. Our new CAO needs to be retrained. I had to be retrained. I still got a long way to go. You, County Council, everybody in here has to be retrained. It's expensive. In any business, you have to have people that want to work for you. Do you think that we have people here that want to work for you? And has it been productive? Has it been good for the county? Is it good for our reputation around the state, sir? No, it's been terrible, and I'm trying to overcome it, and then you're going to tell me to continue to pay out of my own pocket.
Okay, let's get back to the specifics. Are you willing to turn in the keys and follow the travel policy? That's the bottom line of everything. Yes or no?
No.
Okay. Then do we have a motion to proceed with?
Yes, I would motion to direct, Administrator Schroeder and County Council working together to pursue outside counsel to litigate this issue.
More wasted money.
I just have a conflict, so
so you would have no interface?
I'd prefer not to.
Okay, so then for Administrator Schroeder.
I might ask for a reference or direction to go to a certain individual,
I
and,
would
I will,
hope so.
and I will make the decision,
Yeah,
ultimate
I would
decision,
hope
but
that would
since
be
I'm new
okay.
here,
Yeah.
maybe you'll be able to help guide me on that
And
decision.
I might have some also.
I bet you do.
Do we have a second? Back to the motion.
Oh, yes.
Okay, I will second that. Any further discussion? Call for the question?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Okay. Announcements. Coos Curry Housing Authority, there are 2 vacancies. Terms are expiring. And Karen Gilmartin has an application in. That's the one that's been received, and we're awaiting other applications. So if anybody knows of anybody that wants to be part of this Coos Curry Housing Authority, that would be great. June 27th, 2018, there's going to be a meeting here in the Commissioners' hearing room. First of all, the budget meeting from 10 to 10:15, and then a meeting of the Board of Commissioners. July 4th, county offices will be closed. July 18th, there will be a general meeting at 10 a.m. in the Commissioners' hearing room. July 25th, workshop at 10 a.m., Commissioners' hearing room. July 25th through 28th will be the Curry County Fair. August 1st, general meeting at 10 a.m. And then next we have the county administrator. You have a comment.
I neglected, this has gone on again so long in this meeting. We have our decorum, I think it's in the decorum policy
That's
for
right,
the
if we go
times.
past.
I will make a motion, a late motion, to continue this meeting for another 45 minutes maximum.
Okay. Do we
I
have
hope it won't take that
Do we have a
long.
second to that motion? I'll second it. Any discussion? Call for the question.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Yes. Oh, we need a break
Yeah, and I
for
think
our hourly
I think we
employees.
all need a break.
Let's take a 10-minute break. We'll be back at 2:53. Why don't we just make it 3 o'clock? With the county administrator updates, Clark Schroeder.
Okay, thank you, Chair, Council. Committee, or Commission, sorry. Wrong legislative body. A couple things I've been working on, I will be working on. As I mentioned earlier, I'll be working on trying to get the packets to a more manageable bite-sized level for people and the public to digest. 300 pages is, now granted, this is a big one, but it's a lot for people to download and to page through. I've done all the technical aspects to say that this is doable and there's nothing to prohibit us from doing, so I'll probably do an individual demonstration with each one of you to make sure that you think this is a worthwhile endeavor for the county. It'll just be administrative change. It won't require any board action, but I want to make sure that the county board commissioners are in favor of this particular type of change.
What kind of cost is associated with
Nothing.
that? Oh, I love that. Okay, continue.
Yeah. It's more efficient for the staff, and it's more efficient for the citizens, and it doesn't cost us anything.
I'm all for that.
Okay. There was a comment last meeting from CCH concerning that they felt that we were withholding payments on some of the pass-through monies. As you all know, we get monies from the state, we pass them over to CCH. I did have the staff, the finance staff in the county do receipt to payment schedule for us. For the most part, we're well within the 10 days expectations. Even though the contract says 5, we will be changing that to 10. 5 is just unrealistic given a government structure. Louise cannot just pull out a checkbook and just write a check. It has to go through the whole approval process, multiple staff. I sign off on these things. So one of the things that we have with this, I have, going back to 2016 to 2018, I have a list of money that has come over. There's like $140,000 here. Business days to turn around, 8, 1, 3, 5, 10, 3, 1, 5, 8, 4. So these are well within the normal expectations of it on that $140,000. There was one exception for one little small chunk of money that came in at $1,000 or $2,000 a piece. That it didn't have clear definition on what should happen to it, and that was kept for quite some time. It was a total of $10,000 over a 2-year period. But once we got clarification from, or once finance got clarification from the county board to decide what to do with it, it was turned around in a 5-day period. But again, some of those things are up to the discretion and the interpretation of the legislative body receiving the money to making sure it goes in there. And this goes on for pages of information. So I will push back on the statement that the county is holding money from CCH. We're turning it around in a quick, judicious fashion.
So are you going to send a copy of that to Mr. Duque so he can see that?
I will be meeting with Duque on this and another issue concerning the marijuana money.
Okay.
But I can't talk about that in an open session.
Okay.
So, but I will be talking with him about that, and I'll be talking about you guys in executive session about it.
Okay.
Yesterday we went down to the Veterans Building. Unless you want to make a comment.
Well, Louise Colstrom, County Accountant. I kind of would like to make a little comment on the money that was coming in for that tax money that wasn't turned over immediately. This money came in over about 6 months, and it was for 6 months worth of payments. And at the time, we had not previously turned that over to Curry Community Health. And at the time, we also had the agreement with them that has from 2012, I believe, when we did the contract to transfer the public health over to Curry Community Health. And that was that we kept a $30,000 balance at all times when we gave them their payments. So what happened at this point was we had a meeting. Those payments were received from September of 2016 through February of 2017. We had a meeting in March with Mr. Duque and his accountant and myself and my staff, and we determined really why we needed to have that $30,000 holdover. There wasn't any reason for it anymore, and what we were supposed to be doing with this money. And so we determined what we were supposed to do with it, and at that time we wrote them a check and gave them the carryover balance from the year before and this $10,000. That was the 6 months of these tax payments. So ever since then, when we made that agreement of what we were supposed to be doing with this money, and that we were not doing the holding that we had been doing since the transfer agreement, all of the turnovers have been within 10 days, unless there was some kind of problem with staff in my office. I think there was a couple of them where they were gone, and we were not able to honor that. And I would like to say, if we do have a memorandum of understanding with CCH regarding this payment delay time from 5 days to 10 days, that you specify that it's business days. I can't have my staff coming in on a weekend to write a check to get it out within 10 days. So,
is there an administrative fee associated with getting these payments out and so forth, or no?
No, and 10 days turnaround on any payment is a very, very short window, extremely short window. And to have it 10 business days helps a little bit, but usually this kind of thing is like 15 to 30 days turnaround. But these are monthly payments, so having a turnaround of 10 business days would be certainly workable.
Okay. Any other questions? Continue your report.
Okay. Yesterday, Rich Christensen, John Huddle, and I went down to the Veterans Building down in Brookings the city of Brookings is putting some street improvements and upgrading Railroad Street. They're widening it. They're putting in curbs and sidewalks. It's going to be a very nice street going forward, but it has created a lot of disruption to that particular building. And so we basically worked with the contractors and the city to have they were going to have 2 parking spots, ADA on the street. They are now going to come in and put 2 parking spots, handicap parking spots, right next to the building. They're going to take out the old concrete, haul it away, and put in 2 new. And then we wanted to make sure that the water would drain properly. The elevations have changed significantly down there. So I'm glad we got a handle on that, and I'll be very satisfied with that particular outcome.
What are they going to charge us?
0.
Love it.
Richard Christensen will be going to the pre-con to make sure that the elevations and the sight lines are such that it's in line with what we discussed yesterday.
Okay.
So we will have that down. Took a tour yesterday of Boyce Park and the Cape Blanco airport areas. So I'm learning more every week. I'm trying to make a point of going out and meeting departments. I also went to the road department and met with all the employees down there, toured that facility. Been working on Jay Trose's departure. His last day is the end of the month. He was Parks and Juvenile Director. We'll be making administrative moves with the staff that we currently have, and then hiring somebody at a lower level. It will not have a budgetary effect on the county, but I'll be forwarding the information as I manage that process, and I'll bring that forth as not for approval, but just for information for you as we manage this operation. Consent calendar, I'd like to see, I want to try to help support you in the consent calendar, that if you have questions, come to me beforehand so we can have these approved without having to bring it out and draw out, make our meetings shorter and quicker. So if you have questions on consent, let's meet beforehand and talk about it, and then we can not have to worry about taking things off. I'll be reworking the AGRS to put Mr. Huddle back on for a review on things that require legal. I would also like to put on, if there's no staff write-up, a proposed motion. I would like to see so that when you come to approve something, the person that's making the motion just has to read that. It says, here's the proposed motion from staff. You can vary, obviously, if you want, but that way it gives you clear direction on what staff is looking for in a motion for an approval of this particular topic. That's all I have.
Okay, great. Thank you. Commissioner updates. I'm first. I'm going to make it very brief. I have nothing. Commissioner Huxley?
I had, but I'm going to defer until next week. It was on, or no, we won't have commissioner comments next week, but the next time. It was on the, it was predictable. It was on the topic that we talked about. I'm looking at Administrator Schroeder on the local press and the inaccurate, biased misrepresentations continued to where you best if you don't believe anything you read in that publication. But I'll continue with that at a later time.
Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you again. I do have a couple things.
Gee, there's a fire going there for you.
Isn't that amazing? And it was on the other screen a while ago. I think we got it maybe right here. Yeah. I'm just going to read the first paragraph here. A new OSU study on logging practices in the Oregon Coast Range is indicating a win for timber industry, family wage jobs, and a win for fish and clean water. Tim Josie is a Tillamook County Commissioner, and he's been up there for 16 years. I think I referenced him last year, or last meeting, Madam Chair, I can't remember. But this article is available, and it is from a major university. It's a good thing, especially when we have 2 mills that employ 500 people. Briefly, wolves in Jackson County, you've heard me mention that before, but now they're getting a little more attention on the media, and you know, it's not some real livestock kills that are really significant right now, but this is a good story if anybody has interest. The tricky mouse. Pretty big disappointment for the president when Barack Obama increased the Siskiyou National Monument by 48,000 acres. That took a lot of potential harvest land, timber harvest land, out of the monument, and it really affects the BLM counties. As you know, Curry County is on a shared receipt, so anything that's harvested in those 18 counties comes proportionally back to us. And so right now the President Trump is weighing in with President Obama, and essentially all the ONC counties have tried to establish here is don't lock too much of it up. Don't let it grow too much. So that article is available. This is a letter I got from, you were right, it was not Chicago Attorney Counsel Huddle, but I'd ask Administrator Schroeder and Counsel Huddle to look into Curry County, and now this is a week ago. Well, actually, it's 10 days ago. And I'd ask if we had I could back, whoops, wrong one, excuse me. If we could back up and the information I sent, is it too late for Curry County to get in the opioid lawsuit? There's a lot of potential funds coming back to the counties there. Curry County, as you know, has pretty high opioid addictions, we're told. We talked about that in the past. And to my surprise, he's probably shocked we didn't write back, but this is where I think our county council and administrators should be spending a greater level of time, not on trying to prove that I'm inappropriately traveling or damaging vehicles or whatever, but I'm hoping that the board can look at following through with this and getting more information. I just need support on that. It's really simple as far as I'm concerned. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe there's more to it, but we had a window open 10 days ago, or we could go Monday, not now. This is an 8-page report for the Oregon Department of Forestry, State Fire Marshal. Ron Graham, I've heard him speak 2 or 3 times, and if we have another fire, he'll be one of the first ones here. I will make sure of it. Really a good individual, very sharp, and understands our situation here. So anyway, I just had Staff Jesuit do the first 2 pages, but this is, I think, a 6 or 7 page report for our fire season, and I have that available, and I'll get it on the website, and I think that's all I have, Madam Chair. Oh wait, I'm sorry, security cameras, got turned down on that back a year ago, April, for this building, and I'm going to be pursuing that. Bear with me one moment. Oh, I spent quite a bit of time with both the Siletz and Coquille tribes on Southwest Oregon counties, eventually joining with them and having a greater say in the management of our public lands and our national forest, and also, and they are very open to that. I don't think there's anyone that manages timber better than the tribes and private timber, and so there is some interest, and I want to try and bring the counties together, and anything that will lower the odds of potential mega fires, not normal burns, but I think that is really important for Curry County, and I think it has some merit there, and you see the Forest Service slowly but surely starting to let go of some of their control of those lands, and we're not necessarily winning with the radical environmentalists, but there is some noteworthy changes there. And I met for 3 hours with the new Rogue River Siskiyou National Forest Supervisor Merv George, and not to have unrealistic expectations, but seems like a total class person, and he's from I always give him a bad time because I used to race boats in Hoopa, and he calls it Hoopa. That's where he was born. And he's blue collar. He's very intelligent, very committed, and I think he's going to be a friend of Curry County. Might be a little late to express that kind of optimism, or a little early, excuse me, to express that optimism. but I've asked him to come and talk to the board sometime in the next few months when his schedule will allow. But right now, I feel really good about if we have another fire, he and his people, I think he's left no doubt in their mind that his policy is to immediately do everything possible to put the fire out, not to manage it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, we're now going to go into executive session under 192 ORS 192.610 due to D to conduct deliberation with persons designated by the governing body to carry on labor negotiations. Nancy, are you going to hang out for a few minutes? Because I want to talk.